Good day, lovely viewers. Welcome to Cross Naruto. We have an exciting story lined up for you today. What if Naruto was the primordial curse god, the sage who existed before Sukuna? Naruto x Maki x Utahime. Your engagement means the world to us. Like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow and bring you more amazing content. Without wasting any time, let's start. Chapter 1. The dormant god. The air crackled with cursed energy as Naruto stood atop Tokyo Tower, his unruly blonde hair whipping in the night breeze. Far below, the city lights sparkled like fallen stars, oblivious to the battle that had just concluded. He flexed his hand, golden energy still dancing across his fingertips. The curse he'd just dispatched had been unusually strong, and strangely familiar. That makes 17 this week, he muttered, rolling his shoulder where claws had grazed him minutes earlier. The wound had already healed, of course. They always did. His phone buzzed. The caller ID read, Gojo Satoru. Yeah. Naruto answered, voice rough from exertion. Having fun playing vigilante again? Gojo's playful tone carried through the speaker. You know, most consultants just write reports and attend meetings. Most consultants are boring as hell, Naruto replied, grinning despite himself. What's up? Something interesting. Multiple special grade manifestations near Kyoto. The higher-ups want you there tomorrow. I'm sending a team from Tokyo, too. Naruto frowned. Multiple special grades in one area doesn't happen naturally. Exactly why they're calling you in. Oh, and Naruto. They're showing unusual patterns. Symbols no one recognizes. Ancient stuff. Thought that might interest you. A sharp pain lanced through Naruto's temple, bringing with it a flash of something. Golden temples. A throne of bones. A woman's laughter. Then nothing. Naruto. You still there? He shook his head, clearing the strange images. Yeah. Text me the details. After hanging up, Naruto gazed across the cityscape. Something stirred in the back of his mind, memories trying to surface. But as always, they remained just beyond reach, like words on the tip of his tongue. For as long as he could remember, Naruto had been different. Immense power. Accelerated healing. Knowledge of jujitsu techniques no one else seemed to know. And the gaps in his memory that spanned, well, he wasn't sure how long. The jujitsu world knew him as an enigma, a freelance consultant with abilities that rivaled special-grade sorcerers, who appeared out of nowhere 5 years ago. What they didn't know was that Naruto himself had no idea where he came from. His earliest clear memory was waking up in a forest outside Sendai, knowing his name and possessing extraordinary powers, but nothing else. He leapt from the tower, golden energy cushioning his fall as he landed in an empty alley. Tomorrow would bring answers. Or more questions. With his luck, probably the latter. Maki Zenin adjusted her glasses and scowled at the mission brief. Joint operation with Kyoto? Great. To-do. Aoi laughed beside her. Still bitter about the Goodwill event? I just work better alone. Which is exactly why Principal Yaga assigned you to this, Gojo interrupted, sliding open the door to the briefing room. His blindfolded face turned toward Maki. Besides, you'll have excellent company. I'm going too. Maki raised an eyebrow. If you're going, this is bigger than they're letting on. Gojo's ever-present smile widened. Much bigger. And we're bringing in an outside consultant. Who? To-do asked. Naruto Uzumaki. Maki stiffened. Everyone in jujitsu circles had heard rumors about the mysterious blonde consultant who occasionally worked with the higher-ups. Some said he could exorcise special grades single-handedly. Others claimed he used techniques no known sorcerer could reproduce. I thought he was a myth, she said. Oh, he's very real, Gojo replied. And very interesting. Pack for 3 days. We leave in an hour. As the others filed out, Maki stayed behind, reviewing the case details again. Multiple special-grade curses appearing simultaneously near ancient shrine sites around Kyoto. Unusual markings left at each location. Victims displaying symptoms never before documented. Her phone chimed with a message from I, heard you're working with the Golden Ghost. Watch your back. Maki pocketed her phone without replying. She didn't need warnings about mysterious consultants. What concerned her more were the photographs attached to the brief, stone markers covered in spiraling symbols that seemed to shift the longer she stared at them. Something about them felt familiar. The Kyoto station was bustling when Naruto arrived. He'd opted to take the train rather than using his own transportation methods, which tended to raise questions he preferred not to answer. He wore simple attire, black pants, an orange jacket with black trim, and a small scroll tucked into a specialized holster at his lower back. To casual observers, he looked like any other young man in his 20s. Only those sensitive to cursed energy would notice the golden shimmer that occasionally rippled around him when he thought no one was looking. Uzumaki-san, a formal female voice called from behind him. He turned to find a woman in her late 20s with long dark hair and sharp eyes. Utahime, Kyoto's strict instructor who was notoriously difficult to impress. "You're early," she noted, surprise evident in her tone. Naruto grinned. "Don't sound so shocked. I can be professional when the situation calls for it. Your reputation suggests otherwise. Reputations are rarely accurate. For instance, I heard you're incapable of smiling." The corner of her mouth twitched upward before she caught herself. "The Tokyo team is arriving within the hour. Principal Gojo insisted on bringing students." "Sounds like him. I'm guessing you have the same concerns I do about these manifestations." Utahime's expression sobered. "Follow me." She led him to a private room in the station where maps and photographs covered the walls. In the center stood a table with what appeared to be ancient artifacts, stone fragments covered in the same spiraling symbols from the case file. "These have appeared at each site," Utahime explained. "Our researchers can't identify the language or origin. They're not Japanese, not Chinese, not anything in our records." Naruto approached the table, something pulling at his consciousness. The moment his fingers hovered over the stones, they glowed golden. Utahime gasped. "What did you do?" "Nothing," he answered truthfully, equally surprised. "They're reacting to my presence." He touched one of the fragments, and a searing pain shot through his mind. Images flashed before him, a massive tree with 10 tails, eyes like rippling pools, a woman with horns, and blood. So much blood. "Uzumaki-san." Utahime's voice seemed distant. Naruto pulled his hand away, breathing heavily. "Sorry. That was unexpected." "You recognized them," she said. It wasn't a question. Before he could respond, the door slid open and Gojo entered with his team, a tall muscular student with a distinctive hairstyle, and a stern-looking young woman with glasses who carried a metal staff. "Making friends already, Naruto?" Gojo teased. Naruto straightened, composing himself. "Just getting acquainted with the evidence." His eyes met those of the female student. There was something about her, a resonance he couldn't explain. Her cursed energy signature was unusual, not because it was particularly strong, but because it seemed to harmonize with his own. "Maki Zenin," she introduced herself curtly, noticing his stare. "Naruto Uzumaki." He extended his hand, curiosity piqued. When their hands connected, a jolt of energy passed between them. Maki's eyes widened fractionally behind her glasses, the only indication she'd felt it too. "Now that introductions are out of the way," Gojo interrupted, "let's get to the interesting part. 3 new cursed spirits appeared last night, all bearing the same markings. And this time, they left a message." He tossed a photograph onto the table. Written in what appeared to be blood were the words, "The Sage returns." Naruto's head throbbed again, harder this time. The Sage. The title struck a chord deep within him, like the resonance of a bell he'd forgotten existed. "You okay?" Maki asked, noticing his discomfort. "Yeah," he lied. "Let's go check out these new sights." The first location was an abandoned shrine deep in the forests outside Kyoto. Ancient stone steps led up to a dilapidated wooden structure partially reclaimed by nature. But it wasn't the shrine itself that caught everyone's attention, it was the massive scorched circle surrounding it, where all vegetation had been reduced to ash. "Residual energy is off the charts," To-Do commented, crouching to examine the blackened ground. Utahime remained at the perimeter, her expression troubled. "This shrine wasn't on any of our maps. It's as if it just appeared." Naruto felt drawn to the center of the shrine. Each step he took felt like walking through a memory he couldn't quite grasp. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath him as he entered the main sanctuary. At the altar lay a small stone box covered in the same spiraling symbols. Without thinking, Naruto reached for it. "Wait!" Maki called out, rushing forward. "We should analyze it first." Too late. As his fingers touched the box, it cracked open. Inside lay a single kunai knife with 3 prongs and inscriptions along the handle. The sight of it hit Naruto like a physical blow, sending him staggering backward. "Use this when you're ready to remember, my friend." The voice echoed in his mind, deep and ancient, belonging to someone he should know but couldn't recall. "Naruto." Gojo's voice, suddenly serious, cut through his daze. He realized everyone was staring at him. The kunai floated in the air before him, suspended by his unconscious manipulation of cursed energy. "I've seen this before," he said quietly, plucking it from the air. "I've used this before." Maki stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the weapon. "That's not a standard tool for any jujitsu technique I know." "It's not jujitsu," Naruto replied, the words coming from somewhere beyond his conscious knowledge. "It's fuinjutsu. The sealing art." "Sealing art?" Utahime echoed. "That's not in any of our." A tremendous crash interrupted her as something massive landed outside the shrine, shaking the entire structure. They rushed outside to find themselves facing a monstrous creature, humanoid but distorted, with multiple arms and a mask-like face covered in the same spiral patterns. "Special grade," To-Do confirmed, preparing his cursed technique. But Naruto wasn't listening. He stared at the creature, recognition washing over him. "Otsutsuki," he whispered. The creature roared, its voice like grinding stone. "Sage! You hide in human form. Coward!" It lunged forward with impossible speed, bypassing To-Do and Gojo entirely, aiming directly for Naruto. Its elongated arm transformed into a blade of bone. Maki moved instantly, her staff intercepting the bone blade with a sound like thunder. The impact created a shockwave that splintered trees around them. "Move!" she shouted at Naruto, struggling against the creature's strength. Instead, Naruto stepped forward. Golden energy swirled around him, forming patterns in the air. He felt knowledge flowing through him, technique and power he didn't remember learning but somehow knew intimately. He pressed the 3-pronged kunai into Maki's free hand. "Hold this. Don't let go." Before she could question him, Naruto formed a series of hand signs. His eyes changed, pupils disappearing as they filled with a golden pattern of concentric circles. "Sage art, divine judgment." He slammed his palm against the creature's chest. Golden light erupted from the point of contact, spreading throughout its body in glowing veins. The creature screamed, not in pain but in recognition. "You remember." "The sage remembers." "I don't remember," Naruto growled, pushing more energy into the technique. "But I will." The creature dissolved into particles of light, but not before its final words echoed, "Koros comes. The triumvirate rises. Your throne awaits, sage of 6 realms." As the light faded, Naruto staggered, his unusual eyes returning to normal blue. Maki caught his arm, steadying him. What the hell was that? She demanded, still holding the kunai. Gojo and the others surrounded them, all wearing expressions ranging from shock to suspicion. I think, Naruto said slowly, that wasn't a cursed spirit. At least, not originally. Then what was it? Utahime asked. Something older than curses. Something from, before. Gojo's usually carefree demeanor had vanished completely. Naruto, I've known you for years, and I've never seen you use that technique. Those eyes weren't human. Naruto met his gaze steadily. I'm not sure I am either. Not entirely. The tension was broken by a sudden song, a single perfect note that cut through the air like crystal. Everyone turned to Utahime, who looked as surprised as the rest. I didn't, she began, but her voice transformed, resonating with power as words formed without her conscious control. The sage who walked the 6 realms returns, when ancient pacts lie broken and burned. The triumvirate rises from slumber deep, to claim what the golden god cannot keep. She clapped her hands over her mouth, eyes wide with shock. The forest fell deathly silent. Did you know you could do that? Tadu asked, breaking the tension. Utahime shook her head. That wasn't me. Something used my voice. Maki was still looking at Naruto, the 3-pronged kunai clutched in her hand. You're the sage it mentioned. It wasn't a question, but Naruto answered anyway. I think I was. Once. He looked down at his hands, seeing them as if for the first time. I don't remember. There are gaps. But these things recognize me. This changes the mission parameters, Gojo said, adjusting his blindfold. We're not just dealing with random curse outbreaks. We're dealing with something targeted at Naruto. Or awakened by him, Utahime added, her voice back to normal. Naruto expected suspicion, perhaps even hostility. Instead, Maki stepped forward and handed him back the kunai. If you're the target, that makes you our best source of information, she said pragmatically. Memories or not. A loud crackling sound drew their attention skyward. The clouds above had begun swirling unnaturally, forming a spiral pattern that matched the symbols on the stone fragments. Lightning flashed, striking the ground in a circle around them. We need to move, Gojo ordered. Back to Kyoto. Now. They didn't make it to Kyoto. Halfway back, reality itself seemed to shiver. The forest around them distorted, trees stretching and compressing as if viewed through warped glass. Gojo immediately activated his cursed technique, surrounding them in infinity's protection. Domain expansion, Tadu guessed. No, Naruto and Utahime said simultaneously. Naruto continued, this is different. Older. This isn't cursed energy manipulation, it's space-time distortion. The air before them rippled and tore open, creating a window into what appeared to be another dimension, a vast desert of purple sand under a black sky filled with shattered moons. A woman stepped through the tear. She was inhumanly beautiful, with pale silver skin and eyes like liquid mercury. Her hair floated around her as if underwater, defying gravity. When she spoke, her voice echoed as if coming from multiple throats. My dearest friend, she said, looking directly at Naruto. How low you have fallen. Naruto stared at her, pain lancing through his head. Images flashed, this same woman, laughing beside him on a celestial throne, her face contorted in rage as they fought across realities, her tears as he sealed away, something important. You know me, he stated, stepping forward despite Gojo's warning hand. I have known you for eons, sage of 6 realms. Creator of worlds. Father of jujitsu. My beloved enemy. Her mercury eyes shifted to the others. And you surround yourself with such fragile creatures. How sentimental you've become. Who are you? Utahime demanded. The woman's smile was terrifying in its beauty. I am Amara, the Void Empress. First of the Triumvirate. And I have waited 5,000 years for the sage to reawaken. Maki moved to Naruto's side, staff ready. What do you want with him? Amara laughed, the sound causing flowers to wither around them. Want? I want what was promised. The throne of creation. The keys to the 6 realms. The power he stole and then abandoned. She floated closer, the tear in reality following her movement. You sealed your power and memories away, old friend. Scattered your divine essence across time. But the seal is weakening. The fragments are calling to each other. Naruto felt something stir inside him, power beyond anything he'd consciously used before, pressing against constraints he hadn't known existed. I don't remember making any promises, he said, golden energy beginning to swirl around him. Oh, but you will. Amara's form began to fade back into the tear. The triumvirate rises. Koro's hungers for your essence. Vashti weaves the truth you tried to hide. And I have waited long enough for what you owe me. She gestured, and the reality tear expanded, threatening to swallow them all. Naruto moved without thinking. His hands formed seals that felt ancient and familiar. Golden chains erupted from his body, wrapping around his companions and anchoring them to this reality as Amara's portal tried to pull them in. Still protecting humans, Amara sighed. Your greatest weakness. With tremendous effort, Naruto forced the portal closed, golden chains wrapping around the edges and pulling until reality sealed itself with a thunderous clap. The forest returned to normal. The only evidence of what had occurred was a perfect circle of glass where the sand from the other dimension had fused with the soil. Naruto fell to one knee, breathing heavily. The others stared at him in stunned silence. Finally, Gojo spoke. I think you owe us an explanation, Naruto. Or should I call you Sage? I would if I could, Naruto replied, rising unsteadily. But I don't remember. Just fragments. Maki approached him, studying him with new eyes. Those chains. That power. That wasn't jujitsu. No, Naruto agreed. It's something, before jujitsu. Something I created, if what she said is true. Utahime had been unusually quiet. Now she stepped forward, her gaze intense. I need to try something. May I? At Naruto's nod, she closed her eyes and began to sing, a single pure note that seemed to resonate with something deep inside him. The pain in his head intensified, but this time, instead of fragmented images, a clear memory formed. He stood atop a massive tree, golden power flowing through him. Below, humanity struggled against monstrous creatures, the first curses, born from human fear and suffering. He raised his hands, and from them flowed techniques and knowledge, the foundation of what would become jujitsu. Beside him stood 3 figures, Amara, manipulating space, a gaunt man who consumed curses whole, and a woman whose words shaped reality itself. With these gifts, his own voice echoed in the memory, humanity will have the tools to fight their own nightmares. We will guide, not rule. They are beneath us, Amara argued. We should reign as gods, not servants. That path leads to destruction, he countered. I've seen it before, in worlds now dead. We will protect and teach, nothing more. The memory shifted to conflict, the 4 of them battling across continents, their power reshaping the land itself. Then his final decision, to seal his own godhood away, scatter his power, and live as human to prevent absolute destruction. The memory faded as Utahime's song ended. Naruto found himself on his knees, tears streaming down his face from the intensity of the recollection. You remembered something, Maki observed, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. I created jujitsu, Naruto said quietly. Gave humans the tools to fight curses. But I wasn't alone. There were 4 of us. Gods, spirits, something beyond human. We disagreed about humanity's fate. The triumvirate she mentioned, Gojo concluded. Naruto nodded. They wanted to rule. I wanted to protect. So I sealed my power away, became human, forgot who I was. And now the seal is breaking, Tadu added, looking more serious than usual. Not just breaking, Utahime corrected. Being broken. Deliberately. Maki helped Naruto to his feet. So what now? Before anyone could answer, Gojo's phone rang. His expression darkened as he listened to the caller. Multiple special-grade manifestations, he reported after hanging up. All across Japan. All bearing the same symbols. It's starting, Naruto said grimly. The triumvirate is gathering power, awakening ancient forces. He looked at each of them, Gojo's calculated interest, Tadu's eager curiosity, Utahime's wary concern, and Maki's steady resolve. I need to remember who I was, he decided. What I did. How to stop them. And we need to prepare for war, Gojo added. If these beings are as powerful as they seem, we're facing an extinction-level threat. Naruto's gaze lingered on Maki, whose cursed energy had resonated with his own, and Utahime, whose voice had unlocked his memories. Both women seemed connected to his past in ways he didn't yet understand. Not all of us need to be involved, he said. This isn't your fight. Maki scoffed. If the world's at stake, it's everyone's fight. Besides, Utahime added, you heard Amara. Your power is fragmented. You need allies. Tadu grinned, cracking his knuckles. And who better than us? For the first time since the encounter, Naruto smiled. I could probably find someone less troublesome. But not nearly as interesting, Gojo countered. Their banter was interrupted by a rumbling beneath their feet. The ground split open, revealing ancient stone steps descending into darkness. Carved into the stone entrance were the same spiral symbols, now glowing with golden light. I'm guessing that's for you, Maki said dryly. Naruto approached the entrance, feeling the pull of something familiar. This is a sanctuary. I created these across Japan, places to store knowledge, power, memories. How do you know that? Tadu asked. I just do. Naruto turned to the others. I need to go down there. Not alone, Maki said firmly, stepping beside him. I should accompany you as well, Utahime added. My voice seems to have some effect on your memories. Gojo nodded. Tadu and I will secure the perimeter and report back to headquarters. We need to mobilize defenses. As they separated, Naruto led Maki and Utahime down the ancient steps. The walls were inscribed with scenes depicting battles between gods and monsters, humans wielding light against darkness. At the center of each mural was a figure with spiky hair and eyes like Naruto's had become during the fight. So you were kind of a big deal, Maki commented, examining the carvings. Apparently, Naruto replied. Though I don't remember most of it. Your memory loss, Utahime observed. It wasn't accidental, was it? Naruto shook his head. No. From what little I've remembered, I chose this. Sealed my power and memories away on purpose. Why would a god choose to become human? Maki asked. Maybe I was tired of being a god, Naruto suggested, though he wasn't convinced. They reached the bottom of the staircase, entering a vast chamber illuminated by an unearthly blue light. At its center stood a crystal basin filled with what appeared to be liquid gold. What is this place? Utahime whispered, her voice echoing. A memory well, Naruto answered, the knowledge surfacing as he spoke. It contains me. Fragments of my consciousness, preserved through time. He approached the basin, golden energy automatically rising to meet him like a pet greeting its master. When he touched the surface, the liquid responded, forming shapes, scenes from a forgotten past. Maki and Utahime gathered on either side of him, watching as the golden liquid showed battles between titanic beings, the creation of techniques that would become jujitsu, and finally, a ritual where Naruto, looking exactly as he did now, placed his hands on a massive stone altar. The ceiling, Utahime realized. In the vision, Naruto's godly essence separated from his body, fragmenting into countless golden shards that scattered across the world. His human form collapsed, memories erased, power sealed. You've been reincarnating, Maki concluded. Living human lives, over and over, without knowing who you were. Until now, Naruto added, pulling his hand away from the basin. Something's changed. The fragments are being drawn back together. A new image formed in the golden liquid, a gaunt figure consuming cursed spirits, growing stronger with each one. The basin identified him, Koros, the hunger that walks. The second member of the triumvirate, Utahime said. And he's in Japan, Naruto confirmed, recognizing landmarks in the vision. Osaka. He's devouring curses to regain his strength. Maki was already checking her weapon. Then that's where we go next. It won't be that simple, Naruto warned. These aren't curses. They're primordial beings. Gods, for lack of a better term. And what does that make you? Utahime asked. Naruto met her gaze steadily. Something similar. But I've been living as human for so long, most of my power is still scattered. Then we find it, Maki stated, as if it were the most obvious solution. These sanctuaries must be connected to your fragments, right? Before Naruto could answer, a tremor shook the chamber. Dust and small stones fell from the ceiling as the rumbling intensified. Someone's attacking the entrance, Utahime realized. Naruto plunged his hand back into the basin. I need more time. I need to remember how to fight them. As his consciousness merged with the memory well, knowledge flooded into him, techniques forgotten for millennia, battles fought across dimensions, and the true nature of cursed energy itself. But most importantly, he remembered the weapons he had created, divine tools meant to combat the triumvirate if they ever turned against humanity. He pulled his hand free just as a massive crash echoed from above. We need to go, he said urgently. They're coming. What did you learn? Maki asked as they rushed toward a previously hidden side passage. I created weapons, divine tools that can harm primordial beings. One of them is in Kyoto. We need to reach it before they do. They emerged from the passage onto a hillside a kilometer from where they'd entered. In the distance, they could see swirling darkness surrounding the original entrance, and massive creatures pulling themselves from the void. Korosa's servants, Naruto identified. He's already regained enough power to summon minions. Maki's phone buzzed with a message from Gojo, under attack. Retreat to Kyoto base. We'll hold them off. We need to help them, Utahime insisted. Naruto shook his head. Gojo can handle himself. We need to secure the divine tool before Koros realizes what I'm after. As if in response to his words, the ground beneath them glowed golden, forming a path leading southeast. What is that? Maki asked. A guide, Naruto explained. The fragments of my power are responding to my awakening consciousness. They're showing us the way. Utahime looked skeptical. And we're just going to trust glowing footprints? Got a better idea? Naruto challenged. When neither woman objected further, he stepped onto the golden path. Let's go. We have a god to prepare for. They followed the golden trail for hours, moving through forests and abandoned shrines, occasionally avoiding populated areas. Each time they passed one of the ancient sites, Naruto felt a pulse of recognition, and more memories surfaced, fragmented but increasingly coherent. By nightfall, they reached the outskirts of Kyoto, where the trail led to what appeared to be an ordinary apartment building. This can't be right, Maki muttered as they stood across the street. Naruto closed his eyes, sensing the energies around them. No, it's here. Below the building. There's a sanctuary underneath it. How do we access it without alerting the residents? Utahime asked practically. Naruto approached a storm drain at the corner of the street. We don't need to go through the building. He placed his hand on the drain cover, channeling a pulse of golden energy. Ancient symbols appeared on the metal, responding to his touch. With a click, the cover loosened. The old ways always have back doors, he explained, lifting the cover to reveal not sewage, but a stone staircase descending into soft blue light. They climbed down, replacing the cover above them. The staircase led to a tunnel that appeared to predate modern Kyoto by centuries. I've studied historical maps of Kyoto for years, Utahime said, running her fingers along the ancient stonework. These tunnels aren't in any record. They wouldn't be, Naruto replied. I created them to be hidden from human awareness. You keep saying I created this and that, Maki observed. Just how old are you? Naruto gave her a wry smile. According to what Amara said. At least 5,000 years. But my memories only go back about 5 years. And before that? Utahime pressed. Fragments. Glimpses. I remember battles. Creating jujitsu. Teaching humans to defend themselves against curses. Then deciding to seal my power and live as human. Why would you give up godhood? Maki asked again, clearly not satisfied with his earlier answer. Naruto paused, considering the fragments of memory that had returned. I think. I was afraid of what I might become. The triumvirate wanted to rule humans as gods. I disagreed. But power corrupts, and I had too much of it. So you chose to experience humanity firsthand, Utahime concluded. Something like that. Naruto's voice softened. From what I remember, I've lived dozens of human lives since then. Each time, I die and reincarnate with no memory of my true nature. This is the first time I've started to remember. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber, similar to the first sanctuary but larger and more elaborate. At its center stood a pedestal bearing a single item, a headband with a metal plate bearing the spiral symbol they'd seen throughout their journey. That's it? Maki asked skeptically. A headband? Naruto approached the pedestal, feeling the pull of power emanating from the seemingly ordinary object. It's not just a headband. It's a focus. A conduit for divine energy. As his fingers touched the metal plate, golden light erupted from it, forming characters in an ancient language that only he could read. To face the triumvirate, one must balance humanity and divinity, he translated aloud. The wearer of this crown shall channel the sages will without losing their human heart. Utahime stepped closer. It's a safeguard, isn't it? To let you access your power without being consumed by it. Naruto nodded, lifting the headband. I created it when I first sealed my power away. Insurance, in case the triumvirate ever broke free. He tied it around his forehead, and immediately, energy surged through him, not overwhelming him, but flowing naturally, as if reacquainting itself with an old friend. His eyes transformed, golden ripples replacing normal pupils. Naruto. Maki's voice held a note of concern. I'm still me, he assured her, though his voice resonated with new power. But I remember more now. The headband is channeling my scattered memories, connecting me to my past selves. Can you defeat them now? Utahime asked. The triumvirate? Not yet. Naruto touched the headband, feeling its limitations. This is just one fragment. I need more power to face all three of them. Before they could discuss further, the chamber began to shake violently. Dust and small stones fell from the ceiling as a terrible pressure descended upon them. He's here, Naruto said grimly. Koro's found us. The far wall of the chamber exploded inward. Through the dust emerged a tall, emaciated figure with skin pulled tight over bone. Where a face should be, there was only a gaping maw lined with countless teeth. It spoke, its voice like grinding stones. Sage. At last. Maki readied her staff, though the color had drained from her face at the sheer pressure of Koro's presence. Is that really one of your old friends? We were never friends, Naruto replied, stepping forward. Golden energy spiraled around him, forming a protective barrier. Koros, the hunger that walks. You've grown thin in my absence. The creature's maw twisted in what might have been a smile. And you have grown weak, playing human for centuries. Your fragments lay scattered, while I have been feasting. On what? Utahime demanded, her voice remarkably steady despite her obvious fear. Curses. Spirits. Gods forgotten by humans. Koros's body rippled, revealing glimpses of the countless entities he had consumed. All to prepare for this day. The day the sage remembers and the triumvirate reclaims its throne. There is no throne, Naruto responded, memories of ancient conflicts surfacing. That was always your mistake, Koros. Your hunger for power blinded you to our true purpose. Purpose? Koros laughed, the sound like breaking bones. Our purpose was dominion. We were gods. We were guardians, Naruto corrected, his voice carrying the weight of conviction. We were meant to protect this world, not rule it. Semantics. Koros lunged forward with impossible speed, his body stretching and distorting. I will consume your fragment and grow stronger. Naruto raised his hand, golden chains erupting from his palm to intercept Koros's attack. The collision released a shockwave that cracked the chamber's walls. Maki, Utahime, get back. Naruto shouted, engaging fully with the primordial being. But Maki didn't retreat. Instead, she charged forward, her staff striking Koros's elongated form with precision. Where the weapon touched, Koros's body sizzled and burned as if touched by divine fire. Impossible. Koros shrieked, recoiling. A human cannot wield divine weapons. Maki looked as surprised as Koros, staring at her staff as golden energy coursed through it. Zenin, Naruto breathed, recognition dawning. Your family, they were my disciples. The divine weapon wielders. Koros recovered quickly, his form swelling as he drew on consumed power. Enough of this. You are outnumbered, sage. The triumvirate rises together. The ground beneath them began to liquefy, reality itself becoming malleable as Koros's power increased. Naruto grabbed Maki and Utahime, surrounding them with his protective energy. We need to retreat, he decided. I'm not strong enough to defeat him yet. How? Utahime asked urgently. He's blocking the exit. Naruto formed a series of hand signs, channeling power through the headband. I'm going to teleport us, but I need an anchor, something connected to my energy. Maki pulled out the three-pronged kunai he had given her earlier. Will this work? Naruto grinned despite the dire situation. You kept it. Perfect. He took the kunai, infusing it with golden energy as Koros lunged toward them again. The primordial being's maw opened impossibly wide, preparing to swallow them whole. Flying Thunder God technique, Naruto called out, throwing the kunai through a gap in the ceiling. In a flash of golden light, they vanished just as Koros's jaws snapped shut where they had been standing. They reappeared on a rooftop in downtown Kyoto, the kunai embedding itself in the concrete before them. Maki stumbled, disoriented by the sudden transportation. What the hell was that? Space-time manipulation, Naruto explained, steadying her. One of my original techniques, before jujitsu was formalized. Utahime was looking at Maki with new interest. He said you couldn't wield divine weapons, but you did. How? Maki examined her staff, which still faintly glowed with golden energy. I don't know. It just responded to me. The Zenin clan, Naruto said, memories continuing to surface. They were among my first disciples. I gave them weapons imbued with divine energy to fight curses. The bloodline has thinned over millennia, but... But what? Maki pressed. Your heavenly restriction, Naruto realized. It's not a restriction at all. It's a remnant of divine blessing, the ability to channel godly energy without being consumed by it. Maki processed this, her expression unreadable behind her glasses. So my family's been carrying your blessing for thousands of years without knowing it? Apparently. Naruto touched the headband, which continued to feed him fragments of memory. The irony is, they probably thought they were special because of their cursed energy techniques, when their true power was something much older. And me? Utahime asked. Why does my voice affect your memories? Naruto turned to her, seeing her in a new light. You're a descendant too. Not of weapon wielders, but of the song priests, humans who use divine hymns to communicate with gods and spirits. Your singing technique isn't just jujitsu, it's an echo of primordial communication. The implications hung heavily between them. Both women were connected to Naruto's past in ways none of them had imagined. Their moment of realization was interrupted by a massive explosion several blocks away, followed by screams. Koro's, Naruto confirmed, sensing the familiar energy signature. He's tracking us. Hunting my energy. We need to lead him away from the city, Maki said immediately, practical as ever. Not yet. Naruto's gaze fixed on a distant mountain. There's another sanctuary there. Another fragment. If I can secure it before confronting Koro's again, I might stand a chance. You want to run? Utahime asked, surprised. Strategic retreat, Naruto corrected. I'm not abandoning the city. But facing Koro's now, with only a fraction of my power restored, would be suicide. Another explosion, closer this time, punctuated his point. Fine, Maki decided. But we need to contact Gojo and the others. They need to know what we're dealing with. Naruto nodded, forming another set of hand signs. Golden energy coalesced before him, taking the shape of a small fox with multiple tails. Find Gojo Satoru, he instructed the construct. Tell him Koro's is in Kyoto. Evacuate civilians. We're headed to Mount High for another fragment. The fox nodded and leapt away, faster than any natural animal could move. Another trick from before jujitsu? Maki asked. Something like that. Naruto offered his hands to both women. Hold on. This next jump is further. As they grasped his hands, Naruto channeled power through the headband. Golden energy enveloped the three of them, and in a flash, they vanished from the rooftop, just as Koro's distorted form appeared on the horizon, hunger radiating from his endless maw. They materialized on the forested slopes of Mount High, near an ancient temple complex partially reclaimed by nature. Naruto stumbled as they arrived, the long-distance teleportation having drained him significantly. You okay? Maki asked, supporting his weight. Using these techniques without my full power is taxing, Naruto admitted, straightening with effort. The headband helps, but it's not enough for sustained high-level abilities. Utahime surveyed the abandoned temple. This is one of the oldest Buddhist sites in Japan. Established in the 8th century. Older, Naruto corrected, approaching the main hall. This sanctuary predates the temple. The monks built over it, probably drawn by the residual divine energy without understanding its source. Inside the dilapidated hall, moss and vines had overtaken ancient statues and altars. Naruto moved with purpose toward the central shrine, where a stone Buddha sat in eternal meditation. It's under here, he said, placing his palm against the statue's base. Golden light spread from his touch, revealing intricate spiral patterns hidden beneath centuries of grime. The stone floor around the statue sank downward, creating a spiraling staircase into darkness. How many of these sanctuaries did you create? Maki asked as they descended. Dozens, maybe hundreds, Naruto replied. I scattered my power widely to prevent anyone from gathering it all. Even I don't remember where every fragment is hidden. The staircase led to a chamber smaller than the previous sanctuaries but more ornate. Ancient murals depicted scenes of creation and destruction, a massive tree with 10 tails, eyes like rippling pools, beings of pure energy battling across a primordial landscape. At the center stood a simple stone altar bearing a scroll sealed with wax impressed with the same spiral symbol. Another fragment? Utahime guessed. Naruto approached reverently. Yes. But more than that. Knowledge. Techniques I created but sealed away because they were too dangerous. He broke the seal, unrolling the scroll carefully. As he read the ancient text, written in a language neither woman recognized, golden energy flowed from the parchment into him. His eyes glowed brighter, power visibly building around him. What does it say? Maki asked. Instructions, Naruto answered, continuing to absorb the scroll's contents. How to create shadow clones, physical duplicates that can act independently. How to form the Rasengan, a technique for concentrating and rotating energy. And he paused, his expression darkening. And what? Utahime prompted. How to remove a god's divinity permanently. Naruto rolled the scroll closed, its contents now absorbed into his consciousness. A technique I created as a last resort against the triumvirate. The implications hung heavy in the air. You were preparing for war against them, Maki realized. Even back then. They were becoming too hungry for power, Naruto confirmed. Amara wanted to reshape reality to her whims. Koros consumed anything that opposed him. And Vashti. The third member, Utahime recalled. You haven't mentioned much about her. Vashti, the whispering truth. Naruto's voice grew distant with memory. Perhaps the most dangerous of all. She speaks reality into being. Her words become truth. Like compulsion? Maki asked. Far worse. She doesn't compel obedience, she rewrites what is possible. What is real? Naruto touched the headband, steadying himself as more memories flooded back. We were creating jujitsu together, teaching humans to protect themselves. But the others began to see themselves as gods deserving worship. They forgot our original purpose. Which was? Utahime pressed. Before Naruto could answer, a familiar sensation washed over him, a distortion in reality that preceded Amara's arrival. The walls of the sanctuary rippled like water. She's found us, he warned, immediately moving to protect his companions. But instead of Amara stepping through a tear in reality, the air before them shimmered, forming into a perfect mirror that reflected not their appearances but their deepest fears. In the reflection, Naruto saw himself consumed by godly power, indifferent to human suffering. Maki saw herself rejected by everyone, completely alone despite her strength. Utahime witnessed herself silenced forever, her voice taken from her. Vashti, Naruto growled. The mirror rippled, and a woman stepped through, breathtakingly beautiful with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that changed color with every blink. When she spoke, her voice resonated with harmonics that made reality itself vibrate in sympathy. My dearest sage, she purred, the sound bringing tears to Utahime's eyes though she didn't understand why. How I've missed our conversations. Unlike Koros's monstrous appearance or Amara's alien beauty, Vashti looked almost human, dangerously, perfectly human. I haven't missed your manipulations, Naruto replied, standing protectively before Maki and Utahime. Vashti laughed, the sound like crystal bells. Always so direct. That's what I loved about you. No games, no pretense. Her kaleidoscope eyes shifted to his companions. And you still surround yourself with humans. Some things never change. What do you want, Vashti? Naruto demanded. The same thing I've always wanted. She stepped closer, reality rippling around her feet. Balance. Order. Purpose. She gestured to the scroll in Naruto's hand. You're gathering your fragments. Preparing for conflict. It doesn't have to be this way. You broke the seal, Naruto accused. You, Amara, and Koros are awakening forces that should have remained dormant. Vashti's perfect features arranged themselves into an expression of hurt. We didn't break your seal, dear sage. You did. What? Naruto's confidence faltered. Your own subconscious choice, Vashti explained, her words carrying the weight of absolute truth. 5 years ago, when you reincarnated into this form, something changed. You began to remember. Fragments at first, then more. Your divine essence started calling to itself, drawing the pieces together. She's lying, Maki stated, though uncertainty tinged her voice. Vashti's gaze flicked to her. I cannot lie, child of the divine weapon wielders. It is not in my nature. I am truth embodied. Then tell us why you're really here, Utahime challenged, her voice carrying unusual power that made Vashti's form waver slightly. The primordial being's eyes widened in surprise. A song priest's descendant. How fascinating. She composed herself and continued, I am here to offer alternatives to the coming war. The triumvirate need not be your enemy, sage. You wanted to enslave humanity, Naruto responded. That hasn't changed. Perspectives change over millennia, Vashti countered. We've watched humanity grow. Struggle. Create wonders and horrors alike. Perhaps they deserve a firmer hand than you believed, but not destruction. And Koro's? Naruto challenged. He's consuming everything in his path. Koro's hungers. It's his nature. Vashti shrugged elegantly. But he can be directed. Contained. With your help. Something about her words felt wrong to Naruto, true but incomplete. The hallmark of Vashti's manipulation. What's the real reason you sought me out before the others? He asked directly. Vashti smiled, genuine appreciation in her ever-changing eyes. Always perceptive. Very well. The triumvirate is no longer unified. Amara seeks your power to reshape all realities to her whim. Koro's wishes to consume everything, including us. I seek balance. You want an alliance, Naruto realized. I want what we originally intended, Vashti corrected. Guardianship, not dominion. Guidance, not control. Pretty words, Maki interjected skeptically. But we just saw Koro's trying to devour an entire city. Koro's cannot be reasoned with anymore, Vashti admitted. His hunger has consumed his rationality. He must be contained, or ended. I cannot do it alone. Naruto studied her, memories of ancient friendship and betrayal swirling in his mind. And Amara? Has grown more dangerous than you remember, Vashti warned. She doesn't merely manipulate space now, she creates and destroys dimensions at will. She's built an empire across realities, waiting for your return. The sanctuary trembled suddenly, dust falling from the ceiling. Vashti looked up, alarm crossing her perfect features. He's found us, she said. Koro's. And he's not alone. As if summoned by her words, reality tore open above them, revealing Amara's silver form floating beside Koro's monstrous presence. Vashti, Amara hissed, mercury eyes flashing. Always the first to break ranks. Always seeking advantage. Betrayer, Koro's growled. Your flesh will taste sweetest of all. Vashti stepped back toward Naruto and his companions. It seems negotiation is no longer an option. Naruto made a split-second decision. He formed the hand signs he had just relearned from the scroll. Shadow clone technique. Golden light flashed, and suddenly 5 identical Narutos stood in the chamber, each radiating power. Fascinating, Vashti murmured. You've recovered that ability already. Amara and Koro's descended into the sanctuary, their power distorting the very air. The chamber began to crack under the pressure of 4 primordial beings in close proximity. We need to leave, one of Naruto's clones urged the others. This sanctuary can't contain a battle of this magnitude. Maki readied her staff, which glowed with divine energy in response to the threat. Can we fight all 3 of them? Not yet, the original Naruto replied. I need more fragments. Utahime stepped forward, inhaling deeply. When she sang, her voice carried power that caused all three primordial beings to flinch momentarily, a perfect note that disrupted their concentration. Now! Naruto shouted. 4 of his clones charged the triumvirate while the original grabbed Maki and Utahime. Golden energy enveloped them as Naruto teleported away, leaving his duplicates to buy them time. As they vanished, Vashti's voice echoed in Naruto's mind, "Find me when you're ready to hear the full truth, sage. The balance of all worlds depends on it." They materialized in a forest clearing far from Mount High. Naruto immediately collapsed to one knee, breathing heavily. "Your clones?" Maki asked, helping him up. "Destroyed," he confirmed, wincing at the phantom pain and flood of memories. "But they served their purpose. When a shadow clone disperses, its experiences return to me. I now know exactly what we're facing." "Which is?" Utahime prompted. "The triumvirate has fractured, just as Vashti claimed. They're working together to find me, but each has their own agenda." Naruto straightened, golden energy slowly restoring his strength. "And they're far more powerful than I remembered." "Can we trust anything Vashti said?" Maki asked skeptically. "Vashti cannot speak direct falsehood," Naruto explained. "But she can omit, imply, and mislead. Her words are always true from a certain perspective, usually hers." Utahime looked troubled. She seemed genuinely concerned about Amara's plans. "That part was likely true," Naruto agreed. "The triumvirate was never truly unified. They tolerated each other because they needed each other's power. But their fundamental natures are incompatible. So what's our next move?" Maki asked, always focused on action. Naruto closed his eyes, sensing the fragments of his power scattered across the country. "I need more fragments. There's a significant one in Tokyo, perhaps the largest piece of my divine essence that I sealed away." "Tokyo is risky," Utahime pointed out. "Densely populated. If they follow us there." "They will anyway," Naruto said grimly. "They can sense my awakening power just as I can sense theirs. The difference is, I'm still mostly human. My power is fragmented. They're fully awakened." He touched the headband, drawing comfort from its steady flow of energy. "But I have advantages they don't. I understand humanity in ways they never will. And I have allies they can't comprehend." His gaze moved between Maki and Utahime, appreciation evident in his glowing eyes. "A divine weapon wielder and a song priest. The exact combination I would have chosen to face the triumvirate. You think that's coincidence?" Maki asked. "I stopped believing in coincidence about 5 sanctuaries ago," Naruto replied with a half-smile. "My fragmented consciousness has been guiding events from the shadows, preparing for this confrontation." He reached into his jacket, producing a small scroll. "This contains instructions for reaching the Tokyo sanctuary. I need to rest before attempting another teleportation." As they set up a temporary camp, Naruto's thoughts turned to the fragments of memory that continued to surface. His original purpose. The creation of jujitsu. The reason he had chosen to seal his divinity and live as human. The true nature of curses themselves. All pieces of a puzzle that was slowly taking shape. A puzzle that might determine the fate of not just this world, but all realities that the triumvirate could reach. As night fell, he watched Maki practicing with her staff, the weapon glowing brighter with each swing as she instinctively channeled more divine energy. Nearby, Utahime meditated, occasional notes escaping her lips that caused the very air to resonate with power. They were remembering too, in their own way. Ancestral knowledge awakening in response to his presence. For the first time since his memories began returning, Naruto felt something beyond confusion and responsibility. He felt hope. Chapter 2, Echoes of Divinity. Dawn broke over the forest as Naruto opened his eyes, golden light briefly flashing across his pupils. He'd slept lightly, one part of his consciousness constantly scanning their surroundings for divine energy signatures. No sign of the triumvirate, yet. Maki sat across from their small campfire, already awake and sharpening her staff's metal ends with a whetstone. Her methodical movements had an almost meditative quality. "That won't hurt them much," Naruto said, sitting up. "Divine beings don't have physical bodies in the conventional sense." She didn't look up from her work. "Maybe not. But it helps me think." A pause, then, "Had any more convenient memory flashes while you were sleeping?" There was an edge to her voice that hadn't been there yesterday. Naruto couldn't blame her. Learning your family's entire history was connected to an ancient god would shake anyone's worldview. "Actually, yes," he admitted. "The Zenin clan weapons, they weren't just tools I gave your ancestors. They were extensions of my power, designed to let humans channel divine energy without being destroyed by it." That got her attention. She finally looked up, eyes narrowing behind her glasses. "So all those special grade tools my family hoards? Fragments of divine weapons. Diluted over time as they were copied and reproduced without understanding their original purpose." Naruto gestured to her staff. "But that one is responding to you differently. It's recognizing something in your blood." Maki twirled the staff, which left a faint golden trail in the air. "Yesterday you called my heavenly restriction a blessing. What did you mean?" Before Naruto could answer, Utahime emerged from the trees, returning from scouting the perimeter. "Train's coming in 20 minutes, she reported, brushing leaves from her hair. "We should move if we want to catch it to Tokyo." "Train?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "I can teleport us. After what happened last time." Utahime countered. "You nearly collapsed. And we can't afford you being drained when we reach Tokyo." "She's right," Maki added, standing and securing her staff to her back. "Besides, they can track your energy signature when you use divine techniques. Mundane transportation might buy us time." Naruto conceded with a nod. They had a point, he needed to conserve power for finding and absorbing the Tokyo fragment. And after the confrontation with all three members of the triumvirate, they'd need every advantage. As they gathered their minimal supplies, Naruto returned to Maki's question. "Your heavenly restriction isn't what the jujitsu world thinks. When I created the divine weapons, I needed humans who could wield them safely. I placed a blessing on certain bloodlines, a modification that would occasionally manifest as reduced cursed energy but vastly enhanced physical abilities. You're saying my restriction was intentional?" Maki's voice remained neutral, but her grip on her staff tightened. "Yes. Though after thousands of years, the jujitsu world forgot its origin and misinterpreted it as a defect." Naruto watched her carefully. The Zenin misunderstood their own heritage. The physical prowess was always the true gift, the ability to channel divine energy through the body without being destroyed by it. Utahime watched this exchange with thoughtful eyes. "And my voice? You mentioned song priests yesterday." "Similar concept, different application," Naruto explained as they began hiking toward the train station. While the weapon wielders channeled divine energy through objects, song priests used their voices to communicate with higher realms. Your singing technique isn't just manipulating cursed energy, it's tapping into primordial frequencies that can disrupt or enhance divine powers. That's why it affected your memories, Utahime realized. I was unconsciously using an ancient technique to... What? Unlock something sealed inside you? Essentially, Naruto confirmed. And it affected the triumvirate too. You saw how they reacted when you sang in the sanctuary. The conversation paused as they reached the edge of the forest. Below them stretched a small rural town with a single train platform visible on its outskirts. They descended quickly, keeping their senses alert for any sign of pursuit. The platform was nearly empty when they arrived, just an elderly couple and a station attendant dozing in his booth. The morning train to Tokyo appeared in the distance, right on schedule. I've contacted Gojo, Utahime said quietly as they waited. He and Tadu managed to contain the situation in Kyoto temporarily. They're meeting us in Tokyo. And the higher-ups? Naruto asked. Demanding answers, she replied. Special grades appearing everywhere, ancient symbols no one recognizes, and reports of gods fighting in sacred sites. They're convening an emergency meeting. Maki scoffed. They'll talk while the world burns. Typical. The train arrived with a rush of displaced air. They boarded quickly, finding an empty compartment at the far end. As the train pulled away, Naruto gazed out at the countryside scrolling past, the normality of it striking him as surreal after everything they'd experienced. So, Maki said once they were underway, what exactly are we looking for in Tokyo? Naruto pulled out the scroll he'd shown them last night, unrolling it on the small table between them. This map shows the location of what might be my most significant sealed fragment. It's beneath Yoyogi Park, in a sanctuary I created before the city existed. Right under one of Tokyo's busiest areas, Utahime noted with concern. If the triumvirate follows us there. They will, Naruto confirmed grimly. But the sanctuary has protections beyond what we've seen so far. It's where I sealed the core of my power, the essence that defines me as the Sage of Six Realms. And what exactly does that mean? Maki asked. What is the Sage of Six Realms anyway? Naruto's expression grew distant as fragments of memory surfaced. The six realms represent different dimensions of existence: humans, animals, gods, demons, hungry ghosts, and hell. As the sage, I could traverse all six freely, maintaining balance between them. That doesn't sound like just another god, Utahime observed. That sounds more like a system administrator, Maki supplied unexpectedly. At their surprised looks, she shrugged. What? I play online games. Someone who maintains balance across different realms sounds like the admin who keeps the game servers running. Naruto laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise even him. That's actually not far off. The triumvirate were like admins too, originally. We each had our domain. I maintained balance, Amara shaped space, Koro's managed energy flow, and Vashti preserved truth and communication. Until they decided promotion to server owners was more appealing, Maki added dryly. Something like that. Naruto's smile faded. But that's what makes them so dangerous now. They're not just powerful beings, they're entities with fundamental access to reality's underlying structure. The train entered a tunnel, plunging their compartment into momentary darkness. When light returned, Naruto continued. The fragment in Tokyo contains my connection to all six realms. Without it, I can access maybe two, the human and divine realms. With it, I might stand a chance against all three of them. Might? Utahime noted the uncertainty in his voice. They've had thousands of years to grow while I've been living as human, my power scattered, Naruto admitted. Even at full strength, facing all three would be challenging. Then we don't let you face all three, Maki stated pragmatically. Vashti seemed willing to ally against the others. Is that an option? Naruto's expression darkened. Allying with Vashti is like making a deal with a sentient contract that's already found loopholes you can't imagine. Everything she says is technically true, but truth can be manipulated. Still better odds than fighting all three simultaneously, Utahime pointed out. Before Naruto could respond, the train shuddered violently. Passengers in other compartments shouted in alarm as the lights flickered. Through the windows, they could see the sky outside darkening unnaturally, clouds swirling into that now familiar spiral pattern. They found us, Naruto said, rising immediately. Faster than I expected. The train lurched again, metal groaning as if under enormous pressure. Outside their window, reality itself seemed to bend, the landscape stretching and compressing unnaturally. Amara, Naruto identified, recognizing her spatial manipulation signature. She's trying to divert the entire train into a pocket dimension. Without hesitation, Maki shattered the window with her staff and climbed out onto the train's exterior, apparently unconcerned about the speed. "I'll buy you time. Get to Tokyo." Before Naruto could stop her, she was running along the train's roof, staff glowing with golden energy. Through the broken window, they watched as she launched herself at what appeared to be a tear in the sky, her weapon striking the dimensional rift with surprising effect. Utahime grabbed Naruto's arm. "We need to help her." Naruto nodded, golden energy already swirling around him. "Hold on." They vanished from the compartment in a flash of light, reappearing on the train's roof beside Maki, who was somehow holding her own against Amara's spatial distortions. Each swing of her staff closed rifts that threatened to swallow sections of the train. "Impressive, little weapon wielder," Amara's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. The bloodline remained strong. Maki didn't waste breath responding, focusing entirely on her defense of the train and its passengers. Naruto's hands moved through signs faster than human eyes could follow. Golden chains erupted from his back, anchoring the train to this reality as Amara's power tried to tear it away. "I can't hold this forever," he warned, strain evident in his voice. Utahime stepped forward, took a deep breath, and began to sing, a perfect, crystalline note that cut through Amara's spatial distortions like a knife. Where her voice reached, reality stabilized, the tears closing temporarily. "The song priests live as well," Amara's voice held genuine surprise. "How clever of you, sage, to preserve your allies through time." The attack intensified, the sky above them ripping open to reveal Amara's true form floating in what looked like the void between stars. Her mercury eyes fixed on Naruto. "Come home, old friend," she called, her voice seductive and terrible. "These human games have gone on long enough." "This is my home now," Naruto responded, golden energy flaring around him as he reinforced his chains. Amara laughed, the sound causing pain in merely human ears. Such sentiment for creatures who live but an eye blink. "Have you forgotten who you are? What we created together?" "I remember enough," Naruto countered. "Including how it ended last time." The Void Empress's expression darkened. "Yes. Your betrayal. Your choice of them over us." "My choice of balance over tyranny," Naruto corrected. Their argument was interrupted by a new presence, a massive distortion approaching rapidly from the south. Koros, tracking them through Amara's portal. "We need to go," Maki shouted, recognizing the new threat. "Now." Naruto nodded grimly. "Get inside." As Maki and Utahime dropped back through the broken window, Naruto formed a series of complex seals. The headband on his forehead glowed brightly, channeling power as he prepared a technique he'd only just remembered. Multidimensional barrier. Golden light expanded outward from him, encasing the entire train in a protective shell. With a wrenching sensation, the train shifted, not physically, but dimensionally, slipping sideways into a parallel track of reality while maintaining its course toward Tokyo. Naruto dropped back into the compartment, breathing heavily. "That should hide us temporarily. I've shifted the train partly into the animal realm, we're still heading to Tokyo, but on a different dimensional frequency." "Animal realm?" Utahime asked, helping him into a seat. "One of the 6, Naruto explained between breaths. Amara can access it too, but it'll take her time to realize what I've done and adjust her tracking." "How long do we have?" Maki asked, scanning the passing landscape that now had a strange, golden tint. "An hour, maybe less." Naruto closed his eyes, focusing on maintaining the barrier. "Enough to reach Tokyo, I hope." The remainder of their journey passed in tense silence. Occasionally, they glimpsed strange creatures paralleling the train's path, beings that existed primarily in the animal realm, visible now through Naruto's dimensional shift. Massive foxes with multiple tails. Birds with human faces. Things that defied easy categorization. "They recognize you," Utahime noted, watching how the creatures bowed their heads as the train passed. I helped shape this realm too, Naruto said quietly. Before humans existed as they do now. As Tokyo's outskirts appeared in the distance, Naruto prepared to return them fully to the human realm. Once we shift back, they'll find us quickly. We'll need to move fast. What's the plan? Maki asked, readying her staff. Gojo and To-Do will meet us at Shinjuku Station, Utahime reported, checking her phone. From there, we go directly to Yoyogi Park. And if the triumvirate intercepts us? Maki pressed. Then we fight, Naruto said simply, his eyes meeting hers. And hope we're strong enough. As the train approached Tokyo's main station, Naruto released the dimensional barrier. Reality shifted back around them with a sensation like passing through a waterfall. The strange golden tint faded from the landscape, and the otherworldly creatures vanished from view. They disembarked quickly, moving through the crowded station with purpose. If the other passengers had noticed anything unusual during the journey, they showed no sign of it, a testament to both Naruto's skill and humanity's capacity for ignoring what didn't fit their understanding of reality. Gojo awaited them on the main concourse, his blindfolded face turning unerringly in their direction as they approached. To-Do stood beside him, arms crossed over his massive chest. You three look like you've had an interesting trip, Gojo commented lightly, though his posture remained alert. Amara found us on the train, Naruto informed him. Koro's wasn't far behind. I had to shift us partially into the animal realm to lose them. Animal realm? To-Do's eyebrows rose. That's not in any jujitsu text I've studied. It wouldn't be, Naruto confirmed. This predates jujitsu. Gojo's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. You'll need to explain that properly later. For now, we've secured a route to Yoyogi Park with minimal civilian exposure. The higher-ups? Utahime inquired. In an emergency session, Gojo replied. Demanding updates every hour. I've told them we're dealing with a previously unknown class of curse. That's one way of putting it, Maki muttered. They moved through back streets and service corridors, avoiding main thoroughfares where possible. Naruto kept his senses extended, searching for signs of the triumvirate, while Gojo did the same for conventional curses. The entire cursed energy landscape of Tokyo has changed, Gojo noted as they hurried through an alley. Patterns I've never seen before. Fluctuations that don't follow any known rules. The triumvirate's presence affects curses, Naruto explained. In a way, they're the progenitors of what you call cursed energy, though they'd never admit it. How so? To-Do asked, genuinely curious despite the circumstances. Cursed energy as jujitsu sorcerers understand it is actually a diluted form of divine energy, Naruto elaborated as they walked. When I created jujitsu, I needed humans to be able to manipulate a form of power that wouldn't destroy them. I essentially stepped down divine energy into something humans could handle. Like converting high voltage to household current, Maki suggested, again showing unexpected technical knowledge. Exactly, Naruto agreed. But the triumvirate's return is causing power surges in the system. The presence of pure divine energy is affecting all cursed energy manifestations. They emerged from the alley near Yoyogi Park's northern entrance. The usually bustling park seemed unnaturally quiet, Gojo's doing, Naruto suspected, using his influence to clear the area without causing panic. As they approached the park's center, Naruto felt a familiar resonance, the pull of his own fragmented power calling to him. He led them confidently through winding paths until they reached an ancient tree, massive and gnarled, that predated the park itself. This was here before Tokyo existed, he confirmed, approaching the tree reverently. I built the sanctuary around it. He placed his palm against the trunk. Golden light spread from his touch, revealing complex patterns carved into the bark that had been invisible to normal sight. The earth trembled slightly as ancient mechanisms activated. The ground before the tree split open, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. Unlike the previous sanctuaries, this entrance glowed with blue-gold light and hummed with palpable energy. This is different from the others, Maki observed, feeling the power washing over them. This sanctuary contains my connection to all 6 realms, Naruto confirmed. The core of what made me the sage. A tremendous crash from the direction they'd come interrupted the moment. Birds erupted from trees as a wave of distorted reality rolled across the park. They're here, Gojo confirmed unnecessarily, his cursed energy flaring in preparation. Naruto made a quick decision. Gojo, to do, can you hold them off while we secure the fragment? Gojo's ever-present smile widened slightly. A chance to test my limitless against primordial gods. Wouldn't miss it. We'll buy you time, to do agreed, cracking his knuckles. Just hurry. As Gojo and To-Do moved to intercept the approaching threat, Naruto led Maki and Utahime down the stone steps. The sanctuary below was vast, far larger than should have been possible beneath the park, suggesting it existed partially in another dimension. The chamber was circular, with a domed ceiling that somehow showed the sky of all 6 realms simultaneously: human world, animal realm, divine plane, demon territory, hungry ghost domain, and hell itself, all overlapping in impossible ways. At the center stood a pedestal bearing what appeared to be a simple wooden staff with 6 rings attached to it. The moment Naruto saw it, something resonated deep within him, recognition beyond conscious memory. The sage's Shikujo, he breathed. My original tool for traversing the 6 realms. As he approached the pedestal, the rings on the staff began to chime, producing a melody that seemed to call directly to his soul. Utahime gasped beside him, her voice unconsciously harmonizing with the otherworldly music. It's beautiful, she whispered. Naruto reached for the staff, but hesitated. This fragment contains more than power. It contains the fullness of what I was. If I reclaim it, you might not be the same person afterward, Maki finished for him, understanding the implication. He nodded, conflict evident in his expression. The more fragments I reclaim, the less human I become. The closer I get to the god I once was. Is that bad? Utahime asked gently. I don't know, Naruto admitted. I chose to become human for a reason. To seal away my power and live among people, life after life. What if I lose that perspective once I reclaim my divinity? Above them, they felt rather than heard the battle beginning. The entire sanctuary trembled as godly powers clashed with Gojo's limitless and To-Do's boogie woogie. Whatever you decide, decide quickly, Maki urged, her practical nature asserting itself. They can't hold off 3 primordial beings for long. Naruto took a deep breath, reaching a decision. Stay close to me. Whatever happens, don't let go. He motioned for Maki and Utahime to place their hands on his shoulders. With them anchoring him to his humanity, he grasped the Shikujo. Light exploded from the point of contact, engulfing all 3 of them. The rings on the staff spun rapidly, creating a sound like all the world's wind chimes resonating at once. Power surged through Naruto, not just energy, but knowledge, memory, identity. Visions flooded his consciousness, the creation of the 6 realms, his hands shaping reality itself. Teaching the first humans to defend themselves against naturally occurring curses, negative emotions given form. The triumvirate, once his closest allies, growing drunk on worship and power as primitive humans built temples to them. His decision to create jujitsu, a system that would allow humans to protect themselves without divine intervention. The war that followed when the triumvirate realized his plan would eventually make them unnecessary. His final choice, to seal his power, fragment his consciousness, and live as human through countless reincarnations, maintaining balance from within rather than above. The visions ended as suddenly as they had begun. Naruto stood transformed, his eyes now permanently displaying the concentric circles pattern, his presence radiating an authority that transcended humanity. The headband and the Shikujo had merged, the rings now attached to the band around his forehead, jingling softly with each movement. Naruto. Maki's voice sounded distant to his newly enhanced senses. He turned to her, momentarily struggling to focus on something so mortal. Then Utahim's hand tightened on his shoulder, her touch somehow grounding him. "I'm here," he confirmed, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that hadn't been present before. "I remember everything." "Everything?" Utahime asked cautiously. "My creation of jujitsu. My war with the triumvirate. My decision to seal my power." He looked at his hands as if seeing them anew. "But also my 5 years in this life. The people I've met. The connections I've formed." Relief showed on both women's faces. He was still Naruto, not just the sage of 6 realms. "So what now?" Maki asked. "If you remember everything, you know how to defeat them, right?" "It's not that simple," Naruto replied, processing millennia of recovered memories. "The triumvirate has grown stronger in ways I didn't anticipate. Amara has conquered multiple realities. Koros has consumed entities I thought indestructible. And Vashti." He paused, a troubled expression crossing his face. "What about Vashti?" Utahime prompted. "She was telling the truth about their division," Naruto confirmed. "But not about her motives. She doesn't seek balance, she wants control. Specifically, control of the flow of information across all realms." Another tremendous crash from above interrupted them. Cracks appeared in the sanctuary's ceiling as divine power seeped through. "We need to help Gojo and Tadu," Maki insisted, already moving toward the steps. "Wait." Naruto raised the Shikujo, its rings chiming in sequence. "I can bring them to us." He struck the staff against the ground once. Reality rippled, and suddenly Gojo and Tadu appeared beside them, looking disoriented. "What?" Tadu began. "Dimensional shift," Naruto explained. "I've temporarily moved the sanctuary fully into the human realm and brought you inside." Gojo adjusted his blindfold, his usual composure momentarily shaken. "Convenient trick. We were about to be overwhelmed." "All 3? Naruto asked sharply. "Just Amara and Koros," Tadu reported. "They're working together, but not smoothly. They argued about how to approach." "And Vashti?" "No sign of her," Gojo confirmed. Naruto nodded, processing this information. "She's planning something separate. We need to move before they breach the sanctuary." "Move where?" Maki asked. "We came here for the fragment, and you got it. There's one more piece," Naruto revealed. "The final and most important fragment, my true divine essence. It's hidden where they'd never think to look." "Where?" Utahime asked. "Jujutsu High School," Naruto answered. "The very foundation of the school was built around my final sealing site." Gojo's eyebrows rose above his blindfold. "That explains a few anomalies in the school's barrier system that have puzzled generations of teachers." Another impact shook the sanctuary, more violently this time. Dust and stone fell from the ceiling as the dimensional barriers began to fail. "They're breaking through," Tadu warned. Naruto raised the Shikujo again. "I'm going to attempt something difficult. I'm going to shift us all directly to Jujutsu High, but through the animal realm to mask our trail. Can you manage that with passengers?" Utahime asked, concern evident in her voice. "With the Shikujo, yes." Naruto positioned himself in the center of their group. "Form a circle. Hold hands." As they complied, Naruto struck the ground with his staff. 6 rings glowed in sequence, each representing a realm of existence. When the 3rd ring, the animal realm, illuminated, he channeled power through it specifically. Reality tore open beneath them, and they fell, not physically, but dimensionally, into a golden-hued landscape that resembled Tokyo but wasn't quite right. The trees were too large, the sky too vibrant, and massive spirit animals roamed freely, ignoring the human structures as if they were mere shadows. "Keep moving," Naruto instructed, leading them through this strange parallel version of Tokyo. "We're partially in the animal realm now. The triumvirate can follow us here, but it will take them time to adjust their perception. They traveled swiftly through the altered cityscape, spirit animals occasionally approaching to bow to Naruto before continuing on their way. Massive foxes with multiple tails seemed particularly reverent, some following at a distance as if providing escort. "You have fans," Maki observed dryly. "The foxes were my first creations in this realm," Naruto explained, a fond expression crossing his face. "They've maintained their loyalty across millennia." As they neared Jujutsu High's location, Naruto slowed their pace. "We need to be careful about how we re-enter the human realm. The transition point needs to align precisely with the school's barrier system." "I can help with that," Gojo offered. "As a teacher, I'm keyed into the barrier's resonance frequency." Naruto nodded appreciatively. "Perfect." They stopped at what appeared to be the school's gate, though in this realm, it manifested as a massive torii gate formed from living wood, with spirit symbols etched into its surface. "This is the boundary between realms," Naruto explained. "Gojo, if you can attune the barrier to recognize us." Gojo placed his hand on the gate, channeling his cursed technique. The wood responded, symbols glowing blue as they recognized his energy signature. "Done," he confirmed. "We can pass through now." Naruto raised the shakujo once more, its rings chiming a complex melody. "Everyone stay close. The transition can be disorienting." As they stepped through the gate together, reality shifted around them. The golden tint faded, spirit animals vanished, and the oversized vegetation returned to normal proportions. They emerged on Jujutsu High's grounds, near the main building. "We made it," Tadu confirmed, looking around at the familiar campus. "And without triggering any alarms," Gojo added, sounding impressed despite himself. Naruto didn't relax, his senses extended to their maximum range. "They'll track us here eventually. We need to move quickly." He led them into the school building, navigating corridors with surprising familiarity for someone who had officially visited only a few times as a consultant. They descended below ground level, past the standard training rooms, into areas that even Gojo seemed unfamiliar with. "I didn't know these lower levels existed," the teacher admitted as they entered a corridor that looked ancient compared to the modern school above. "They predate the school by thousands of years," Naruto confirmed. When jujutsu practitioners decided to build a training facility, they were unconsciously drawn to this location because of the divine energy residue. The corridor ended at a wall carved with the now familiar spiral pattern. Unlike the previous sanctuaries, this entrance had no obvious mechanism, no place for Naruto to channel energy. "How do we open it?" Maki asked, examining the wall carefully. Instead of answering directly, Naruto turned to Utahime. "This entrance responds only to the voice of a song priest." Utahime looked surprised but composed herself quickly. "What do I need to sing?" "Your instincts will guide you," Naruto assured her. "The pattern will resonate with your bloodline." Utahime studied the spiral carving, then closed her eyes. When she began to sing, the notes seemed to form themselves, an ancient melody that none of them had heard before, yet somehow felt familiar. The wall responded immediately, the spiral pattern glowing gold as stone ground against stone, revealing an opening. "Well done," Naruto said softly, genuine appreciation in his voice. They entered a chamber unlike any of the previous sanctuaries. Where the others had been ornate and symbolic, this room was starkly simple, a perfect circle with a raised dais at the center. On the dais stood a crystal vessel containing what appeared to be living golden fire. "My divine essence," Naruto identified, approaching reverently. "The core of what made me a primordial being." "It looks alive," Tadu observed. "In a way, it is," Naruto confirmed. "Divine essence isn't just power, it's consciousness, identity, purpose." He turned to face the others, his expression solemn. "Once I reclaim this, there's no going back. I'll no longer be primarily human with divine fragments. I'll be a divine being choosing to maintain human form." "Is that what you want?" Maki asked directly. "Want doesn't matter," Naruto replied. Need does. The triumvirate must be stopped, and only my complete self has any chance of doing that. But after? Utahime pressed. If you succeed, what then? Will you stay? The question hung in the air, loaded with implications beyond the immediate crisis. Naruto looked between Maki and Utahime, seeing concern in their expressions that transcended mere alliance. I don't know, he admitted honestly. The pull of the 6 realms will be strong. My responsibilities as sage extended beyond this world. But you chose humanity before, Maki pointed out. You must have had a reason. I did, Naruto acknowledged, memories of his original decision surfacing clearly now. I found something in human existence that divinity lacked, connection. Meaning derived from limitations. Beauty born of impermanence. He stepped onto the dais, standing before the vessel of golden fire. Whatever happens, know that these days, fighting alongside all of you, have reminded me why I made that choice originally. Without further hesitation, he placed his hands on either side of the crystal vessel. The golden fire responded immediately, surging upward and outward, engulfing him completely. The others shielded their eyes from the intensity of the light. Within the golden inferno, Naruto felt his essence reconstituting, divine power flooding every cell, expanding his consciousness beyond physical limitations. Memories not just of his own past lives but of the creation of reality itself cascaded through him. Knowledge of cosmic laws and the underlying structure of existence integrated with his understanding. When the light finally faded, Naruto stood transformed. His appearance remained largely the same, but his presence had changed fundamentally. The air around him shimmered with barely contained power. His eyes glowed with golden light, the concentric circle pattern now permanently visible. The shikujo in his hand had transformed as well, becoming a staff of pure golden energy. Naruto. Maki's voice held a note of uncertainty. He turned to face them, momentarily struggling to focus on such finite beings. Then he blinked, and his expression softened into one they recognized. I'm still here, he assured them, his voice carrying harmonic undertones. Just, more than I was. Did it work? Tadu asked. Are you fully restored? Yes, Naruto confirmed. I am the sage of 6 realms once more. Before anyone could respond, the entire school shook violently. Alarms blared throughout the building as barrier breaches were detected simultaneously at multiple points. They found us, Gojo confirmed, his cursed energy flaring in response. All 3 of them, attacking from different directions. Naruto's expression hardened. They felt my essence reconstituting. They'll throw everything they have at us now. What's the plan? Maki asked, readying her staff, which now glowed with continuous golden energy in response to Naruto's fully awakened presence. You 4 evacuate the school, Naruto ordered. Get everyone to safety. I'll confront them. Alone? Utahime protested. Even at full power, I'm not planning to defeat them yet, Naruto interrupted. Just buy time and assess their capabilities. We need to understand exactly what we're facing before committing to a final confrontation. Another violent tremor shook the building, dust falling from the ancient ceiling. Go, Naruto urged. The students and faculty need your protection more than I do right now. Gojo nodded reluctantly. We'll secure the evacuation. But don't do anything heroically stupid. That's usually your department, Naruto replied with a ghost of his former grin. As the others turned to leave, Maki hesitated. Be careful, she said simply. I will. Naruto's gaze held hers for a moment longer than necessary. We have unfinished conversations. With that promise lingering between them, Maki followed the others out of the sanctuary. Once alone, Naruto raised the shikujo, its rings chiming in complex patterns. Let's see what you've become, old friends, he murmured, and vanished in a flash of golden light. He reappeared on the school's roof, immediately assessing the situation. The sky above had darkened unnaturally, swirling with energy signatures he recognized all too well. 3 distinct attacks converged on the school's barrier system. From the east, spatial distortions bent reality around the perimeter, Amara's signature technique. From the north, massive shadow creatures consumed everything in their path, leaving emptiness behind, Korosa's hunger manifest. From the west, golden script crawled across the barrier like living calligraphy, attempting to rewrite its very nature, Vashti's truth manipulation. Naruto raised the Shikujo high, golden light emanating from his form. Enough. His voice carried power that momentarily stabilized reality, forcing all 3 attacks to pause. The clouds above parted as 3 figures descended to hover in the air around the school, Amara's silver form, Korosa's monstrous presence, and Vashti's perfect human appearance. The sage returns in truth, Amara called, mercury eyes flashing. No longer playing at humanity. Divinity restored, Koros growled, his endless maw opening wider in anticipation. The feast will be glorious. Vashti merely smiled, her ever-changing eyes studying Naruto with calculating interest. The circle completes. 4 corners of existence reunited after 5,000 years. I didn't invite a reunion, Naruto responded, power thrumming through his reconstituted divine form. You broke the compact. Threatened this realm. Endangered humans under my protection. Your protection? Koros laughed, the sound like grinding bones. You abandoned your divinity to play mortal. Left the realms unguarded. Not unguarded, Naruto corrected. Balanced. Self-sustaining. As they were meant to be. A failed experiment, Amara dismissed. Look at what they've done without our guidance. Wars. Destruction. Chaos. And creation. Art. Love. Sacrifice. Naruto countered. Things gods struggle to understand. Vashti floated closer, her perfect features arranged in an expression of reason. We needn't be adversaries, sage. The 4 of us created order once. We could do so again, improved by the lessons of time. Is that why you've been consuming every cursed spirit in Japan? Naruto challenged Koros directly. To create order. The monstrous entity's form rippled with barely contained hunger. I prepare for what comes. The hunger between worlds grows. You know this. That gave Naruto pause. Among his restored memories was knowledge of what had prompted their original alliance, a threat from beyond the 6 realms that had nearly consumed all existence. You believe it's returning? He asked more cautiously. We know it is, Amara confirmed, her hostility momentarily set aside. The dimensional barriers thin. The void between realities hungers once more. This is why we sought your fragments, Vashti added. Not merely for power, but necessity. The sage must return for what comes next. Naruto studied them carefully, sensing truth mixed with manipulation in their claims. The threat they spoke of was real, he could feel it now with his restored awareness, a distant pressure against the boundaries of reality. But their response to it remained suspect. Even if true, he responded finally, your methods remain flawed. Subjugation isn't protection. Consumption isn't preservation. Manipulation isn't truth. Then what do you propose, sage? Vashti asked reasonably. Will you stand alone against what comes? Not alone, Naruto stated firmly. With humanity as partners, not subjects. Koros made a sound like grinding teeth. Sentimentality. Weakness. Strength you never understood, Naruto countered. Why I chose to live as human rather than rule as God. Before the conversation could continue, a new disturbance rippled through reality. Far to the north, something massive breached the barrier between dimensions, something that caused even the triumvirate to pause. It begins earlier than expected, Amara murmured, mercury eyes fixed on the distant disturbance. The hunger comes, Koros confirmed, his form rippling with what might have been anticipation or fear. Vashti turned to Naruto, her ever-changing eyes serious. Whatever our disagreements, this threat concerns us all. Will you at least hear our counsel before deciding our mutual fate? Naruto considered the request, weighing millennia of history against present necessity. 24 hours. No attacks on humans or this realm. Then we meet, all four of us, to discuss what comes next. Agreed, Vashti answered immediately. Acceptable, Koros rumbled reluctantly. Amara studied Naruto for a long moment before nodding. One day. Then destiny resumes its course. With that, the three primordial beings withdrew, Amara through a spatial tear, Koros by simply fading into shadow, and Vashti with a bow before she dissolved into golden script. Alone again on the roof, Naruto turned his senses toward the northern disturbance, extending his awareness across dimensions. What he found sent a chill through even his divine essence, a tear in reality itself, allowing something ancient and ravenous to begin seeping through. The triumvirate hadn't lied about that, at least. Something worse than them was coming. Something he had hoped never to face again. Naruto found the others coordinating the evacuation in the school's main courtyard. Students and faculty were being efficiently organized into groups, with Tadu and several other senior students maintaining a perimeter. Gojo spotted him first, breaking away from a conversation with school officials to approach. They've withdrawn, he noted, sensing the change in energy patterns. Temporarily, Naruto confirmed. We've agreed to a 24-hour truce. Forgive me for sounding skeptical, but can we trust primordial gods to keep their word? Gojo's tone remained light, but his concern was evident even behind his blindfold. Not entirely, Naruto admitted. But they're distracted by something else now. Something potentially worse. Before he could elaborate, Maki and Utahime joined them, having overseen the evacuation of the eastern dormitories. The students are clear, Utahime reported. Though containing the rumors will be impossible. Too many saw unusual phenomena. Let them talk, Naruto said dismissively. Jujutsu Society has hidden the truth for too long anyway. Maki studied him with sharp eyes. You're different. It wasn't a question, nor was it an accusation, merely an observation. Naruto nodded, acknowledging the change. My perspective has expanded, he explained. I can perceive all 6 realms simultaneously now. Track currents of energy across dimensions. Remember the creation of this world. But you're still you, Utahime prompted, searching his expression for confirmation. Yes, Naruto assured her with a small smile. That's the paradox of my existence, both primordial entity and the human I chose to become. Both perspectives are valid. Both are me. Good, Maki said simply. Because we need both to figure out what happens next. Naruto's expression sobered. We have 24 hours before I meet with the triumvirate again. But before that, I need to show you something. He led them away from the evacuation area, to a quieter corner of the campus where a small traditional garden provided privacy. Once certain they wouldn't be overheard, he planted the shikujo in the ground and channeled his power. A three-dimensional image formed in the air before them, a map of Japan with a glowing red spot in the far north. What are we looking at? Tadu asked, studying the projection. A breach between dimensions, Naruto explained grimly. Something is forcing its way into this reality from beyond the 6 realms. Another god? Gojo asked. Naruto shook his head. No. Something older. Something the triumvirate and I joined forces against originally, before our falling out. He expanded the image, showing a writhing darkness seeping through a tear in reality itself. Even as a mere projection, it radiated wrongness that made them all instinctively recoil. We called it the primordial hunger, Naruto continued. Not a being in the conventional sense, but an anti-existence, a force that devours reality itself. It nearly consumed everything before the 4 of us united to force it back and seal the boundaries between dimensions. And now it's returning, Utahime concluded, understanding dawning. That's why the Triumvirate sought to awaken you. Partly, Naruto confirmed. Though I suspect they have their own agendas as well. Amara still wishes to reshape reality to her design. Koros believes consuming enough power will protect him from the hunger. Vashti thinks she can rewrite the rules of existence to exclude the threat entirely. And you? Maki asked directly. What's your solution? Naruto met her gaze steadily. Balance. Cooperation. The combined strength of all realms, including humanity, standing as one. Which the Triumvirate opposes, Gojo surmised. They believe humans are too weak, too fractious, too brief to be meaningful allies, Naruto confirmed. They don't understand what I learned through countless human lives, that limitation breeds innovation. That impermanence creates meaning. That cooperation achieves what domination cannot. So we have two problems, to do summarized practically. Primordial gods who want to rule everything, and an ancient super curse that wants to eat everything. Essentially, Naruto agreed with a faint smile at the simplification. Wonderful, Maki commented dryly. Any good news? Just one piece, Naruto replied. The Triumvirate can't defeat the hunger alone. They need me. Which gives us leverage in tomorrow's meeting. Gojo adjusted his blindfold thoughtfully. So we use that leverage to force terms they wouldn't normally accept. Precisely. Naruto dispelled the projection with a wave of his hand. I'll demand their oath to leave humanity to develop independently after the threat is contained. No divine interference, no subjugation, no manipulation. Will they agree? Utahime asked skeptically. They may have no choice, Naruto responded. But convincing them will be challenging. They've had 5,000 years to reinforce their belief that they know better than humans. So what's our move now? Maki asked, ever focused on immediate action. You four need to warn Jujutsu Society, Naruto decided. Prepare defenses, not just against the Triumvirate but against incursions from the hunger. It will send smaller manifestations before attempting to fully breach reality. And you? Utahime pressed, sensing he had separate plans. I need to restore the ancient wards around Japan, Naruto explained. Defenses I created millennia ago that have weakened with time. They won't stop the hunger, but they'll slow its advance. Gojo nodded decisively. We'll handle the jujitsu side. The higher-ups won't believe everything, but they'll respond to concrete threats. We should split up, To-Do suggested. Cover more ground. Agreed, Naruto said. Gojo, To-Do, coordinate with the jujitsu schools and the higher-ups. Maki, I'll need your help with one of the ward sites, it requires a divine weapon wielder to activate. And me? Utahime asked. The ward in Kyoto responds to song priests, Naruto told her. Your voice can reactivate protections that have been dormant for centuries. As they prepared to separate, Naruto pulled Maki aside briefly. The ward site I mentioned, it's in the mountains north of Tokyo. It's where I stored the most powerful of the divine weapons. If we're going to face both the Triumvirate and the hunger, we'll need every advantage. Maki nodded, understanding the implied gravity. When do we leave? Immediately, Naruto replied. Time works differently near dimensional breaches. What seems like days here could be moments there, or vice versa. They rejoined the others for final coordination. As plans were confirmed and responsibilities assigned, Naruto felt a strange mixture of divine certainty and human anxiety, the perfect embodiment of his dual nature. The coming hours would determine not just the fate of this world but all 6 realms he had helped shape. 24 hours, Gojo reiterated as they prepared to depart. Then what? Naruto's expression grew solemn, golden eyes glowing with restored power. Then I face former friends who became gods, and remind them why I chose humanity instead. The mountain shrine had clearly been abandoned for decades, perhaps centuries. Overgrown stone steps led to a dilapidated wooden structure, its roof partially collapsed and walls reclaimed by nature. Yet despite its physical decay, Naruto could sense the power still humming beneath the surface, divine energy preserved across millennia. "This doesn't look like much," Maki commented as they approached through the forest. "That's intentional," Naruto explained. The most powerful sights were often disguised as the most humble. The triumvirate would look for grandeur, temples, monuments. They never understood the beauty of simplicity. They climbed the moss-covered steps, Naruto's divine senses alert for any sign of pursuit or observation. The True seemed to be holding for now, but he trusted the triumvirate only as far as their self-interest aligned with honesty. Inside the shrine, fallen beams and rotting tatami mats created an obstacle course of decay. Naruto moved confidently to what remained of the central altar, brushing aside decades of debris to reveal a stone floor etched with the familiar spiral pattern. "Another sanctuary?" Maki asked, readying her staff. "Not exactly," Naruto replied, kneeling to trace the pattern with glowing fingertips. "More like an armory." The stone responded to his touch, the spiral pattern illuminating with golden light. Unlike previous sanctuaries, however, no passage opened. Instead, the entire shrine began to change around them, decay reversing, structures reforming, time itself seeming to flow backward until they stood in a pristine mountain temple that looked newly built. "Dimensional overlay," Naruto explained, noting Maki's startled expression. "We've partially shifted into the divine realm where this shrine exists in its perfect state." The transformed shrine's interior glowed with soft golden light emanating from paper lanterns that burned with flame that was clearly not ordinary fire. The walls featured intricate carvings depicting battles between divine beings and shadow creatures remarkably similar to modern curses. At the center, where the decayed altar had stood moments before, now rose an ornate weapons rack holding a single katana in a white scabbard decorated with golden spirals. "The Tatsuka blade," Naruto identified reverently. "One of the divine weapons I created before Jujutsu existed." Maki approached cautiously, her own staff humming in resonance with the katana. "What does it do?" "It seals whatever it pierces," Naruto explained. "Not just physically, but conceptually. It can seal powers, abilities, even immortality itself." Understanding dawned in Maki's eyes. "A weapon that could potentially seal a god. Or part of the primordial hunger," Naruto confirmed. "I created it as a last resort, should any of us, myself included, ever become corrupted by power." He gestured for Maki to approach the weapon. "Only a divine weapon wielder can remove it from the rack. The Zenin bloodline carries the blessing that allows you to touch divine weapons without being consumed by their power." Maki stepped forward, eyeing the katana with a mixture of caution and determination. As her hand neared the hilt, golden energy arced between her fingers and the weapon, recognizing compatible essences. "It knows you," Naruto observed. "The blessing in your blood resonates with its purpose." With a decisive motion, Maki grasped the hilt and lifted the katana from its resting place. The moment she held it fully, the blade seemed to come alive, a soft chiming sound emanating from it as if celebrating reunion with a worthy wielder. "It's singing to me," Maki said quietly, genuine wonder breaking through her usually stoic demeanor. "Divine weapons are semi-sentient," Naruto explained. "They choose their wielders as much as wielders choose them." Maki unsheathed the blade partially, revealing metal that wasn't metal at all but solidified divine energy that flowed like liquid while maintaining perfect sharpness. "I can feel its purpose," she murmured. "It wants to contain, protect, preserve boundaries." "Exactly what we need against both the triumvirate and the hunger," Naruto confirmed. "The Tatsuka blade can create boundaries that even gods cannot easily cross." As Maki resheathed the katana, the shrine around them shuddered slightly. Naruto frowned, extending his senses beyond their immediate surroundings. "Something's wrong," he said, moving to the entrance. "The dimensional wards are fluctuating." Outside, the sky had taken on an unnatural purple hue, clouds swirling in patterns that defied normal atmospheric behavior. In the distance, what should have been Tokyo's skyline appeared distorted, buildings stretching and compressing as if viewed through warped glass. The hunger, Naruto identified grimly. It's affecting dimensional stability faster than I anticipated. I thought we had 24 hours before anything happened, Maki said, securing the Totsuka blade at her waist. Time works differently near breaches, Naruto reminded her. And the hunger defies normal rules of causality. Effect sometimes precedes cause. He raised the shikujo, using it to scan the distortions more precisely. What he found concerned him deeply, microscopic tears in reality appearing throughout Japan, not just at the northern breach point. It's worse than I thought, he admitted. The hunger isn't just coming through one entry point, it's wearing away the barriers between dimensions across a wide area. Can we stop it? Maki asked directly. Not alone, Naruto answered honestly. Even at full power, this is beyond what I can handle without the triumvirate's assistance. Another tremor shook the shrine, more violently this time. The dimensional overlay flickered, momentarily revealing the decayed structure beneath before stabilizing again. We need to activate the ward, Naruto decided, moving back to the central altar. It won't stop the hunger, but it will slow the deterioration of dimensional boundaries in this region. He knelt before the altar, placing the shikujo horizontally across it. I'll need your assistance. The Totsuka blade must be used to cut a dimensional anchor point. Maki nodded, unsheathing the katana fully. Divine light spilled from the blade, illuminating the shrine with brilliant golden radiance. Where do I cut? She asked. There. Naruto pointed to what appeared to be empty air above the altar. You won't see it with normal vision, but trust the blade. It knows where to strike. Maki raised the Totsuka blade, focusing on the space Naruto had indicated. To her surprise, the katana seemed to guide her movements, pulling her arms gently toward a specific point in the air. When she swung, the blade encountered resistance where nothing should have been, then sliced cleanly through some unseen barrier. Golden light erupted from the cut, expanding outward in concentric circles that passed through the shrine walls and continued into the distance. As the light spread, the dimensional distortions visible outside began to stabilize. It's working, Naruto confirmed, channeling power through the shikujo to reinforce the effect. The ward is reactivating. The process continued for several minutes, golden energy flowing outward to strengthen reality's fabric against incursion. When it finally stabilized, Naruto rose to his feet, satisfaction evident in his expression. That should hold this region for now, he said. We'll need to activate similar wards across Japan to create a comprehensive defense network. How many are there? Maki asked, sheathing the Totsuka blade with newfound familiarity. 5 major wards, originally, Naruto replied. This is the first. Utahime should be activating the Kyoto ward now. The others are in Hokkaido, Okinawa, and Shikoku. Can we reach them all before meeting the triumvirate? We'll have to, Naruto said grimly. Without the wards, Japan will be overwhelmed by dimensional instability before negotiations even begin. As they prepared to leave the shrine, Naruto paused, sensing a familiar presence approaching. Not the triumvirate, something else. Something both ancient and new. A massive fox with 9 flowing tails appeared at the shrine entrance, its fur glowing with the same golden energy that emanated from Naruto himself. It bowed its head respectfully. Kurama, Naruto greeted, genuine warmth in his voice. Old friend. Sage, the fox responded, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than physically manifesting. I sensed your return to fullness. Maki stared at the creature, impressively maintaining her composure despite facing a legendary being from Japanese mythology made flesh. A Kyubi no Kitsune, she identified. I thought they were just stories. Many stories are simplified memories of the time when realms intersected more freely, Naruto explained. Kurama is the first and greatest of the tailed beasts I created to help maintain balance in the animal realm. The fox's attention shifted to Maki, intelligent eyes assessing her. A divine weapon wielder. The bloodline endures. Barely, Maki replied. And most don't know what they truly are. Kurama made a sound that might have been a chuckle. Humans forget quickly. Gods remember too long. Both are flaws. Why have you come, Kurama? Naruto asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. The other tailed beasts have sensed the hunger's return, the fox confirmed. We offer our assistance, as in days of old. Naruto nodded appreciatively. We'll need it. The dimensional barriers are weakening faster than expected. The 8 are gathering, Kurama informed him. We will reinforce the boundaries between realms where we can. Thank you, old friend. Naruto placed a hand on the fox's massive head. It's good to see you again. As the fox departed, disappearing into the forest with supernatural speed, Maki turned to Naruto with an arched eyebrow. There are 8 more of those. Each with different abilities, Naruto confirmed. They're guardians I created to maintain balance in my absence. Like jujitsu itself, they were meant to be a self-sustaining system that wouldn't require my constant intervention. You really didn't want to be a god, did you? Maki observed, insight breaking through her practical exterior. Naruto's expression softened. I saw what godhood did to the triumvirate, how worship corrupted them, how power isolated them from the very worlds they shaped. I chose a different path. Humanity, Maki concluded. Humanity, Naruto agreed. With all its flaws and limitations and remarkable capacity for growth. Another dimensional tremor interrupted their conversation, this one strong enough to momentarily disrupt the shrine's overlay, causing the structure to flicker between its pristine and decayed states. We need to move, Naruto decided. Hokkaido next, it's closest to the main breach point and needs reinforcement urgently. He raised the Shikujo, preparing to shift them through dimensions, then hesitated. Maki, when this is over, after the triumvirate and the hunger, there are things we should discuss. She met his gaze directly, understanding the unspoken implications. Let's make sure there is an after, first. Naruto nodded, appreciating her practical focus. With a strike of the Shikujo against the shrine floor, reality folded around them, and they vanished from the mountain sanctuary, leaving behind only the lingering glow of reactivated wards pushing back against the encroaching darkness. Hokkaido's northern tip was barely recognizable when they arrived. The dimensional breach had progressed significantly, reality itself becoming malleable near the coast. The sea churned with unnatural patterns, water occasionally flowing upward against gravity before crashing back down. The sky above had split open, revealing not stars but writhing darkness punctuated by what looked disturbingly like massive eyes. It's worse than I expected, Naruto admitted as they materialized on a cliff overlooking the disturbance. The breach is expanding exponentially. Maki surveyed the chaos, her expression grim. Where's the ward site? Naruto pointed to a small island just offshore, or what should have been an island. Currently, it appeared to be simultaneously underwater, floating in the air, and phasing in and out of existence. There, he said. Though reaching it will be challenging with dimensional stability this compromised. Before they could formulate a plan, the air behind them distorted. Naruto spun, Shikujo raised defensively, only to relax slightly when Vashti's perfect form stepped through the ripple. Sage, she greeted, her ever-changing eyes taking in the situation. You've noticed the acceleration as well. This violates our truce, Naruto said cautiously. We agreed to meet tomorrow. Circumstances have changed, Vashti replied reasonably. The hunger advances faster than predicted. Waiting would be unwise. Where are the others? Naruto demanded, sensing no sign of Amara or Koros nearby. Containing breaches elsewhere, Vashti answered. Amara in Europe, Koros in what you call South America. The hunger attacks across multiple fronts simultaneously. Maki remained tensely alert, one hand on the Tatsuka blade. Convenient timing. Vashti's perfect lips curved into an appreciative smile. Skepticism. A valuable trait. Her gaze shifted to the katana. The Tatsuka blade. I haven't seen it since the first war against the hunger. You plan well, sage. What do you want, Vashti? Naruto asked directly. To propose an adjustment to our arrangement, she replied smoothly. Individual action is proving inefficient. I suggest immediate coordination rather than waiting for our scheduled conference. Naruto studied her carefully. Of the triumvirate, Vashti had always been the most subtle, her manipulations cloaked in technical truths that concealed deeper agendas. Yet the situation before them was undeniably dire. What exactly are you proposing? He asked. A joint operation to seal the primary breach, Vashti explained, gesturing toward the distorted island. Your ward alone won't be sufficient. It requires the combined power of at least 2 primordial beings to stabilize that region. And the others would accept this cooperation? They already have, Vashti assured him. Necessity overrides old grievances. For now. Another violent tremor shook the cliff where they stood. Chunks of earth broke free, falling upward into the distorted sky before vanishing into the writhing darkness. We don't have much choice, Maki noted pragmatically. That breach is growing by the second. Naruto nodded reluctantly. Very well. But the weapon wielder comes with us. Of course, Vashti agreed readily. The Tatsuka blade will be essential for severing the hunger's tendrils once we've pushed them back. She extended her hand, golden script flowing from her fingertips to form a bridge of solid light stretching from the cliff to the fluctuating island. Shall we? She invited. They crossed the bridge cautiously, reality becoming increasingly unstable as they approached the island. Gravity shifted unpredictably, one moment pulling them downward with crushing force, the next leaving them nearly weightless. The very air seemed to phase between states, sometimes breathable, sometimes not, forcing Naruto to create a protective barrier around Maki. The island itself was a nightmare of impossible geometry, angles that couldn't exist in three-dimensional space, surfaces that were simultaneously concave and convex, vegetation that grew in reverse, dying back into the ground only to emerge again in endless cycles. At the center of the chaos stood what had once been a small shrine, now transformed into something that hurt the mind to perceive directly. The shrine simultaneously existed in multiple states, whole, ruined, never built, still under construction, and impossibly ancient. The breach epicenter, Vashti identified. Where dimensional barriers are thinnest. Naruto planted the Shikujo firmly, using it to temporarily stabilize a small area around them. The ward anchor point is beneath the shrine. We'll need to reach it to reactivate the protective matrix. And I will reinforce your work with truth binding, Vashti added, golden script already forming around her hands. Reality responds to my definitions. They approached the warped shrine cautiously, fighting against the chaotic dimensional fluctuations. Just as they reached the structure, a massive tendril of darkness erupted from beneath it, not physical matter but a manifestation of the hunger itself, anti-existence given form. Back! Naruto shouted, golden chains erupting from his body to intercept the tendril. Where divine energy met anti-existence, reality itself screamed, a sound beyond hearing that nonetheless resonated through all 6 realms. The tendril recoiled briefly before surging forward again with greater force. Vashti raised her hands, golden script flowing from her fingertips to form complex patterns in the air. By my word, boundaries hold. Separation maintains. Hunger remains external. Her declaration, infused with primordial power, briefly pushed the darkness back, reality firming around her defined terms. But the effect was temporary, the hunger already adapting to her constraints. It's learning, Naruto realized with growing concern. Adapting to divine countermeasures faster than before. The Tatsuka blade, Vashti urged, turning to Maki. It can sever the connection temporarily while we activate the ward. Maki unsheathed the katana, divine light spilling forth to momentarily stabilize reality around them. The blade hummed with purpose, practically vibrating in her grip as it sensed its ancient enemy. "Where do I strike?" she asked, eyes fixed on the writhing darkness. "There," Naruto indicated where the tendril emerged from beneath the shrine. "Cut at the dimensional boundary itself. The blade will know the precise point." Maki moved forward with surprising speed, even as reality fluctuated wildly around her. The Tatsuka blade guided her movements, pulling her toward the exact spot where existence and anti-existence met. With a single decisive strike, she cleaved through what appeared to be empty air. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The tendril severed, its connection to the hunger temporarily broken. The portion remaining in this reality writhed in what might have been pain before dissolving into nothingness. Reality stabilized slightly, giving them a brief window of opportunity. Now. Naruto drove the Shikujo into the ground at the shrine center, golden energy flowing into the earth to activate the dormant ward. Vashti joined him, her golden script intertwining with his power to reinforce the effect. For a moment, it seemed to be working, the dimensional distortions receding, the impossible geometries resolving into normal three-dimensional space. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them cracked open, a new tendril of darkness erupting with far greater force than before. This one struck Vashti directly, engulfing her perfect form before either Naruto or Maki could react. Her scream transcended normal sound, resonating on a fundamental level that made reality itself shudder in sympathy. "Vashti!" Naruto moved to assist her, golden chains lashing out to pull her from the darkness. But when he succeeded in freeing her, the damage was already done. Vashti's perfect form had been corrupted, half her body remained as before, but the other half had become transparent, revealing swirling darkness within. Her ever-changing eyes had fixed on a single horrifying pattern, spirals of anti-existence consuming themselves endlessly. "Sage," she gasped, her voice distorted with harmonics that hurt to hear. "It touched me. It knows me now. We need to get you away from the breach," Naruto insisted, supporting her failing form. "Too late," she whispered, golden script flowing from her unaffected hand to form a barrier between them and the growing crack in reality. "It has tasted divinity. It will not stop." Maki rejoined them, the Tatsuka blade still drawn and glowing. "The ward?" "Partially activated," Naruto confirmed. "But insufficient without full reinforcement." Another tendril began forming, this one larger than the first. The ground trembled as reality groaned under the strain of containing something that existed to devour existence itself. "You must go," Vashti urged, more darkness spreading through her perfect form. "Warn the others. It's stronger than before. It has evolved." "We're not leaving you," Naruto insisted. Vashti's corrupted face managed a smile that was both beautiful and terrible. "Always sentimental, even after our betrayal." Her voice strengthened momentarily, power flowing through her words. "By my final truth, I hold the breach. By my sacrifice, I buy time." Golden script erupted from her entire body, forming a complex spherical barrier around the breach epicenter. Within the barrier, Vashti began to dissolve, her divine essence converting into pure truth energy to reinforce her final declaration. "Go!" she commanded, her voice carrying compulsion that even Naruto found difficult to resist. Recognizing the finality of her decision, he grabbed Maki and raised the Shikujo. Golden light enveloped them as he teleported them back to the cliff overlooking the island. From this vantage point, they watched as Vashti's barrier contracted around the breach, compressing it to a fraction of its former size. Her form was no longer visible, having been completely converted into the energy required to contain the hunger temporarily. "She sacrificed herself," Maki observed quietly. "Yes," Naruto confirmed, his expression solemn. Though with Vashti, sacrifice always serves multiple purposes. Before Maki could question his meaning, the air behind them distorted again. This time, two figures emerged, Amara's silver form and Korosa's monstrous presence, both radiating alarm. Vashti?" Amara demanded, Mercury eyes fixed on the compressed breach in the distance. "Gone," Naruto answered grimly. "Consumed by the hunger, then self-sacrificed to contain the breach temporarily." Koro's made a sound like grinding teeth. "Impossible. Vashti cannot be consumed." "The hunger has evolved," Naruto explained, sharing what Vashti had told them. "It's adapted to divine countermeasures. It tasted her essence and began corrupting her from within." Amara's Mercury eyes narrowed. "If it can corrupt Vashti, none of us are safe. Not even you, Sage. Which means our original strategy is no longer viable," Naruto concluded. "We can't simply push it back and reseal the boundaries as we did before." "What then?" Koro's demanded, his massive form rippling with agitation. "It must be stopped. It must be countered at its source," Naruto stated, an idea forming from his restored memories. "Not just here, where it breaches our reality, but in the void between dimensions where it originates." "Impossible," Amara dismissed immediately. "Nothing can exist in the void. Even we would be consumed." "Not nothing," Naruto corrected, turning to Maki. "The Totsuka blade wasn't just created to seal powers or entities. It was designed to cut through dimensional barriers, to create pathways where none should exist." Understanding dawned in Maki's eyes as she looked down at the divine weapon in her hand. "You want to cut a path into the void itself?" "Yes," Naruto confirmed. "A controlled incursion to strike at the hunger's core rather than merely defending against its tendrils." "Suicide," Koro's growled, though there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. "Perhaps," Naruto acknowledged. "But containment is already failing. Vashti's barrier won't hold for long. If we don't take the offensive now, we'll be fighting a losing battle across all 6 realms." Amara studied him carefully, Mercury eyes calculating. "You've changed, Sage. The old you would never suggest such a direct confrontation. 5,000 years as human taught me that sometimes the greatest risk yields the only viable path forward," Naruto replied simply. A tense silence fell between them as the 2 remaining members of the triumvirate considered his proposal. In the distance, Vashti's barrier flickered ominously, her final truth beginning to fail against the relentless pressure of anti-existence. "We would need to coordinate perfectly," Amara finally said, implicit acceptance in her tone. "All of us, including your human allies." "What use are humans against the hunger?" Koro's demanded. "More than you might think," Naruto replied, placing a hand on Maki's shoulder. "Divine weapon wielders. Song priests. Jujitsu sorcerers with inherited techniques that echo our original powers. Humanity has evolved defenses you've overlooked." Another flicker from Vashti's barrier, more pronounced this time. They had minutes at most before it failed completely. "We need to act now," Naruto urged. "Return to Tokyo. Gather our allies. Prepare for the incursion." After a moment's hesitation, both Amara and Koro's nodded in reluctant agreement. The threat transcended old grievances, for now at least. "How will you cut through to the void without being immediately consumed?" Amara asked practically. Naruto turned to Maki. "The Totsuka blade creates boundaries even as it cuts them. In the hands of a true divine weapon wielder, it can carve a protected path through the void, a tunnel of defined existence within anti-existence." "You place much faith in human ability," Amara observed, studying Maki with new interest. "With good reason," Naruto replied confidently. As Vashti's barrier began to crack visibly in the distance, they departed, Amara through a spatial tear, Koro's by dissolving into shadow, and Naruto with Maki via divine teleportation. The temporary alliance had formed, born of desperate necessity. Whether it would hold long enough to confront the hunger remained to be seen. They materialized in Tokyo to find the city in chaos. Dimensional instability had spread faster than anticipated, reality fluctuating visibly in certain districts. Buildings wavered between states, sometimes transparent, sometimes solid. People moved in strange patterns, occasionally seeming to walk backward through time or freeze in place for minutes before continuing normally. The ward network is failing without full activation, Naruto observed grimly as they appeared atop Tokyo Tower for a better vantage point. Can we still complete it? Maki asked, surveying the disturbances spreading across the cityscape. There's no time, Naruto replied. Vashti's containment won't hold much longer. We need to prepare for the incursion immediately. He closed his eyes, extending his senses across the city to locate their allies. He found them quickly, gathered at Jujutsu High, which remained relatively stable thanks to its ancient protections. They're at the school, he informed Maki. Gojo has assembled a defensive force. Another teleportation brought them directly to the school grounds, where they found a scene of organized preparation. Jujutsu sorcerers from both Tokyo and Kyoto had gathered, forming teams under Gojo's direction. To-do was organizing students into support squads, while Utahime worked with a group of technique specialists. Gojo sensed their arrival first, turning toward them with his usual casual stance belying the tension evident in his voice. The situation's deteriorating exponentially. Dimensional anomalies across Japan. Reports of similar disturbances worldwide. Vashti is gone, Naruto informed him bluntly. Consumed by the hunger, then self-sacrificed to temporarily contain a major breach in Hokkaido. Genuine surprise showed on Gojo's face despite his blindfold. One of the primordial beings, dead. Not dead in the conventional sense, Naruto corrected. Converted into pure energy to maintain a barrier. But effectively removed from the equation. Utahime joined them, concern evident in her expression. And the other two? On their way here, Naruto confirmed. We've formed a temporary alliance out of necessity. The hunger has evolved beyond our original countermeasures. He quickly explained the situation and their proposed strategy, a direct incursion into the void to strike at the hunger's core rather than merely defending against its manifestations in this reality. You're suggesting we take the fight to its home territory, Gojo summarized, sounding more intrigued than alarmed by the audacity of the plan. It's our only viable option, Naruto confirmed. Defensive measures are already failing faster than we can implement them. To-do crossed his massive arms thoughtfully. How many can participate in this incursion? A small team only, Naruto replied. Myself, Amara, Koros, and 3 humans with specific abilities. Which abilities? Utahime asked. A divine weapon wielder, Naruto began, nodding toward Maki. A song priest to stabilize reality through dimensional harmonic resonance. His gaze shifted to Utahime. And a domain specialist to create a bubble of defined reality within the void. All eyes turned to Gojo. Me. The white-haired sorcerer's ever-present smile widened slightly. I'm flattered you think my limitless would work in a place where existence itself is questionable. It will, Naruto assured him. Your technique creates boundaries between spaces at a fundamental level. Combined with Amara's spatial manipulation, it can maintain a sphere of viable reality within anti-existence long enough for us to reach the core. Before they could discuss further details, reality rippled as Amara appeared nearby, her silver form drawing wary looks from the assembled sorcerers. Moments later, shadows pooled unnaturally, rising to form Koros's monstrous presence. The jujutsu sorcerers tensed, many preparing techniques reflexively at the sight of the primordial beings. Gojo raised a hand, silently ordering them to hold. The triumvirate, or what remains of it, he identified calmly. Satoru Gojo, Amara acknowledged, Mercury eyes studying him with interest. The sage believes your limitless technique will function within the void. A bold assumption. I'm known for exceeding expectations, Gojo replied lightly, though the air around him distorted slightly with activated cursed energy. Koros made a dismissive sound. Human techniques are pale shadows of divine power. Yet necessary for our current strategy, Naruto reminded him firmly. We each bring essential components to this incursion. He turned to address the gathered sorcerers. The rest of you will form our anchor in this reality, maintaining the connection that allows our return. Principal Yaga will coordinate with Tadu to establish a ritual circle using jujitsu barriers reinforced by divine energy. And the time frame? Utahime asked. Naruto's expression grew solemn. Vashti's containment could fail any moment. We need to depart within the hour. This announcement spurred immediate action. Sorcerers broke into assigned teams, preparing barrier techniques and support structures. Gojo, Maki, and Utahime moved closer to Naruto for more detailed instructions. Once we enter the void, Naruto explained quietly, conventional physics and jujitsu principles will become suggestions at best. We'll be fighting against a force that inherently negates existence itself. How do we hurt something that isn't technically real? Maki asked practically. With tools designed to enforce reality, Naruto replied, nodding toward the Tatsuka blade at her hip. Divine weapons don't just cut physical matter, they sever concepts, define boundaries, enforce rules. Within the void, they become reality anchors. And my voice? Utahime asked. We'll maintain the frequency of our reality, Naruto explained. The hunger disrupts dimensional resonance patterns. Your singing counteracts that disruption, allowing our other techniques to function. Gojo adjusted his blindfold thoughtfully. And my role is to create a bubble of defined space within undefined anti-existence. Precisely, Naruto confirmed. Your limitless already operates on similar principles, defining what can and cannot interact, creating boundaries at a fundamental level. As preparations continued around them, Amara approached their group, Mercury eyes fixed on Maki with unsettling intensity. The weapon wielder bloodline has thinned, she observed. Yet you carry the blessing strongly. Interesting. Maki met her gaze unflinchingly. The Zenin clan lost sight of their true heritage. They thought physical strength was the consolation prize for lacking cursed energy. When in fact it was always the primary gift, Amara finished, surprising them with her understanding. The sage and I disagreed on many things, but the divine weapon wielders were a rare point of agreement. Humans who could touch godly power without being consumed by it, a necessary balance. This unexpected moment of accord was interrupted by a violent tremor that shook the entire school. In the distance, visible even from the grounds, the sky above Tokyo split open, a massive tear revealing the same writhing darkness they had witnessed in Hokkaido. Vashti's containment has failed, Naruto announced grimly. The hunger comes in force now. Koro's materialized beside them, his monstrous form rippling with agitation. No more delay. We must strike now. For once, everyone agreed. The incursion team gathered at the center of a hastily prepared ritual circle, Naruto with the Shikujo, Maki wielding the Tatsuka blade, Utahime ready to sing the dimensional harmonies, Gojo with his limitless primed, and the two remaining primordial beings radiating divine power. Around them, jujitsu sorcerers completed the anchor circle, a complex barrier technique reinforced with divine symbols provided by Naruto. Tadu stood at the north point, Principal Yaga at the south, and other powerful sorcerers at east and west. The connection will remain stable for 60 minutes, Naruto informed the incursion team. After that, the dimensional strain will become too great for the anchor circle to maintain. An hour to save all existence, Gojo commented lightly. Seems generous. Despite the dire circumstances, Naruto found himself appreciating the human capacity for humor in the face of annihilation. It was, he reflected, one of the qualities that had drawn him to choose humanity over godhood so long ago. Are we ready? He asked, looking to each member of the team. Maki nodded, the Tatsuka blade already glowing with anticipation. Utahime took a deep breath, preparing her voice. Gojo's smile remained unchanged, but the air around him distorted with activated technique. Amara and Koro's positioned themselves at opposite sides of their small group, divine energy manifesting visibly around their forms. Then let's begin, Naruto declared, raising the Shikujo high. Golden light erupted from the staff, synchronizing with the barrier circle around them. Maki stepped forward, the Totsuka blade held before her in a traditional stance. When I cut, she stated calmly, be ready to move immediately. The path won't stay open long. Without waiting for acknowledgement, she brought the blade down in a perfect arc, not striking any physical object, but cutting reality itself. Where the divine weapon passed, a seam appeared in the air, golden light spilling from within. With practiced precision, Maki completed the cut, a full circle large enough for them to pass through. Reality peeled back like layers of fabric, revealing a tunnel of golden light stretching into impossible distance. Now! Naruto commanded. Together, the incursion team stepped into the cut, leaving behind the relative safety of their reality to confront the hunger in its own domain. The path to the void had opened. The final battle for existence itself had begun. Chapter 3, God Awakened. The void wasn't empty. That was Naruto's first thought as they stepped through the tear in reality. It writhed with anti-existence, a concept nearly impossible for human minds to process. Not darkness, which would be merely the absence of light, but the active negation of being itself. Stay close, he ordered as the gateway sealed behind them. The path will narrow quickly. They moved forward along the golden trail created by Maki's cut, a tunnel of defined reality within a sea of unreality. Around them, the void pressed against their protective bubble, testing its boundaries like a predator seeking weakness. Disgusting, Amara murmured, Mercury's eyes narrowed as she reinforced the spatial boundaries of their path. It's grown stronger since our last confrontation. Gojo's normally casual demeanor had sharpened into intense focus as he extended his limitless technique to complement Amara's efforts. Fascinating, he commented. It's not just attacking our physical forms, it's trying to erase the concept of our existence. Hunger consumes all, Koros rumbled, his monstrous form rippling as he contributed his own power to their protection. Concepts. Memories. Possibility. The tunnel constricted suddenly, anti-existence pressing in from all sides. Maki reacted instantly, slashing with the Totsuka blade to reinforce their path. Where divine weapon met void, reality reasserted itself, pushing back the encroachment. We need dimensional stability, Naruto called to Utahime. Can you sing the harmonics? She nodded, taking a steadying breath. When Utahime began to sing, it wasn't merely sound but foundational frequency, notes that reinforced the very concept of existence. The tunnel stabilized immediately, golden light brightening as her voice established harmonic resonance with the fabric of reality itself. The core lies ahead, Naruto informed them, the Shikujo pulsing in response to some distant presence. We're approaching the nexus where the hunger first formed. This thing had a beginning? Maki asked, continuing to slash at tendrils of anti-existence that probed their defenses. Everything does, Naruto confirmed. Even forces that seem eternal. As they progressed deeper, the tunnel walls began to display strange patterns, not images exactly, but impressions of worlds consumed by the hunger. Ghostly afterimages of realities that had once existed but were now mere memories preserved in the void's endless appetite. It remembers what it eats, Gojo observed, his blindfolded face turned toward the phantasmal displays. Interesting archival system. Not memories, Amara corrected grimly. Trophies. A violent shudder ran through their protective pathway. Utahime's voice faltered momentarily as something massive moved in the formless chaos beyond their tunnel, a presence so vast it defied comprehension. It senses us, Naruto warned. The core consciousness is awakening. Koros made a sound like grinding stone. It recognizes divine essence. Remembers our last encounter. The tunnel ahead split suddenly into multiple branches, each leading in different directions through the void. The team halted, faced with an unexpected choice. A defense mechanism, Naruto realized. It's trying to separate us. Which path is real? Maki demanded, the Totsuka blade humming with tension as reality fractures spread through their protective bubble. Naruto closed his eyes, extending his senses beyond conventional perception. As sage of 6 realms, he could perceive patterns invisible to others, the underlying structure of existence itself. When he opened his eyes again, they glowed with intensified purpose. None of them, he declared. And all of them. The core exists in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously present at every possible location to avoid direct confrontation. Then how do we fight something that isn't anywhere specific? Utahime asked, maintaining her harmonic resonance with visible effort. We don't go to it, Naruto decided, raising the Shikujo. We bring it to us. Golden energy erupted from the staff, expanding outward in concentric circles. Each ring carried symbols from different realms, human, animal, divine, demon, hungry ghost, and hell, all resonating in complex patterns. I'm creating a fixed point in the void, he explained as power continued to flow. A singularity of absolute reality that the hunger cannot ignore. It will be drawn to consume it. You're using yourself as bait, Maki realized, her expression hardening. That's reckless. It's necessary, Naruto countered. Divine essence is the only thing appetizing enough to draw its full attention. Before anyone could object further, the void around them shuddered violently. The multiple pathways collapsed, leaving only their small bubble of reality floating in infinite anti-existence. Then, from every direction simultaneously, the void began to contract toward them, drawn by Naruto's divine lure. Prepare yourselves, Koros warned, his monstrous form expanding to strengthen their defensive perimeter. Gojo, Naruto called. Maximum limitless. Create absolute boundary conditions. The white-haired sorcerer nodded, removing his blindfold to reveal eyes that pierced through conventional limitations. The air around them distorted dramatically as his technique activated at full power, defining their bubble as absolutely separate from the approaching void. Utahime, the binding harmony, Naruto continued, his voice calm despite the approaching annihilation. She nodded, shifting her song to a different key, notes that seemed to lock reality in place, preventing conceptual slippage between existence and anti-existence. The effect was immediate, their protective bubble solidifying into unbreakable crystal-like hardness. Amara, be ready to create an escape path when I give the signal, Naruto instructed. Maki. The divine weapon wielder met his gaze steadily. I know what to do. Around them, the void contracted further, revealing its true nature as it approached. Not merely darkness or emptiness, but hungry fractals of anti-being, patterns that unfolded into more patterns, each dedicated to unmaking reality itself. And at the center of this impossible geometry, something like an eye opened, vast beyond comprehension, ancient beyond time. The core consciousness, Amara identified, her mercury eyes reflecting the approaching horror. It's beautiful in its way. Focus, Void Empress, Koros growled. Your aesthetic appreciation will not save us. The massive eye fixed upon them, recognition evident in its alien awareness. When it spoke, the sound bypassed their ears entirely, manifesting directly in their consciousness. You return, Shapers. After so long. Bringing morsels. Naruto stepped forward, golden energy radiating from his form as he addressed the ancient enemy. We return to end what began before time. Your consumption of reality stops now. A sound like universes laughing rippled through the void. Consumption is existence. Your existence is consumption. We are not so different. Wrong, Naruto countered. Creation and destruction exist in balance. You seek only the latter. Balance is illusion. Hunger is truth. All returns to void eventually. As they conversed, the core continued contracting around their bubble, testing Gojo's limitless boundaries with increasing pressure. Tendrils of anti-existence probed for weaknesses, seeking any flaw in their defenses. Why now? Naruto demanded, buying time as he gathered power through the Shikujo. Why return after 5,000 years? The eye seemed to blink, though the motion transcended physical movement. You diminished. Fragmented your divinity. The barriers weakened with your choice of mortality. We merely accepted the invitation. Understanding dawned on Naruto's face. My decision to live as human. It weakened the seals. Your mortal fascination endangered everything, Amara hissed, though her tone held more resignation than accusation. As I warned millennia ago. Before Naruto could respond, a tendril of void found a microscopic flaw in Gojo's barrier, a conceptual contradiction in the definition of boundary itself. It slipped through, immediately expanding within their protective bubble. Maki reacted instantly, the Totsuka blade flashing as she severed the intrusion. But where the tendril was cut, more appeared, the hunger learning, adapting, evolving its approach with terrifying intelligence. It's breaking through. Utahime warned, her voice straining to maintain the harmonic barriers. Now, Sage. Koros bellowed. Whatever your plan, enact it now. Naruto nodded grimly, raising the Shikujo high. Golden light erupted from the staff, forming a complex three-dimensional seal in the air, a pattern that mirrored the eye of the hunger itself but inverted, like a photographic negative. Everyone, channel your power through me, he commanded. Divine, cursed energy, all of it. Without hesitation, Amara extended her silver hands, spatial energy flowing into Naruto's seal. Koros did the same, hunger aspect power joining the matrix. Gojo directed his limitless technique to reinforce the structure, while Utahime's voice provided harmonic stabilization. Maki stepped to Naruto's side, the Totsuka blade raised. What do you need from me? When the seal is complete, he explained quickly, it needs to be driven into the core consciousness. Only the Totsuka blade can deliver it without being consumed. The seal continued growing, expanding to match the scale of the hunger's vast eye. Symbols from all 6 realms interwove in patterns of increasingly complex geometry, each reinforcing the others in an unbreakable lattice. You cannot seal me again, the hunger communicated, its awareness recognizing their strategy. I have tasted Vashti's truth. I know the weakness in all seals. We're not trying to seal you, Naruto replied, a confident smile spreading across his face. We're trying to transform you. This declaration seemed to give even the ancient void entity pause. Around them, the contraction of anti-existence hesitated momentarily. Transform. Impossible. I am primordial. Fundamental. So was I, Naruto countered. Yet I chose to change. To evolve beyond my original nature. The seal neared completion, golden energy now so bright it illuminated the void itself, revealing fractal patterns of consumption stretching to infinity in all directions. Reality isn't just something to consume, Naruto continued, his voice carrying the conviction of countless human lives experienced. It's something to participate in. To contribute to. To nurture and protect. Sentiment. Weakness. Temporary. No, Naruto disagreed as the final symbols locked into place. The greatest strength. The ultimate choice. The completed seal floated before them, a perfect counterbalance to the hunger's nature. Not destruction, but transformation. Not negation, but redefinition. Not ending, but beginning. Now, Maki. Naruto called, stepping aside. With perfect focus, Maki drove the Totsuka blade into the center of the seal. Divine weapon and conceptual matrix merged, forming a projectile of pure definitional reality. As she completed the strike, she released the blade, sending the combined seal weapon flying toward the massive eye at the void center. Time seemed to slow as the seal traveled through anti-existence, maintaining its integrity against forces designed to unmake reality itself. When it reached the eye, it didn't pierce so much as integrate, merging with the core consciousness of the hunger like a seed planted in fertile soil. For one breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, reality itself convulsed. The void exploded with light, not golden divine radiance or destructive energy, but pure creative potential. The hunger's vast eye widened, then fractured into countless smaller awareness points, each containing a fragment of the original consciousness but transformed by Naruto's seal. What is this? The voice no longer emanated from a single source but echoed from everywhere simultaneously, confusion evident in its fractured consciousness. Balance, Naruto answered simply. The void isn't meant to only consume. It's meant to incubate. To nurture potential. To provide the emptiness where new realities can take root. The transformation spread outward from the core, anti-existence patterns reorganizing into more complex geometries, still void, still empty, but now pregnant with possibility rather than hungering for destruction. You've transformed it into a cradle for new realities, Amara realized, Mercury eyes wide with genuine wonder. Not destruction of the void, but redirection of its purpose. Clever, sage, Koros acknowledged reluctantly. Yet dangerous. The hunger may yet return to its original nature. Not without help, Naruto replied, watching as the transformation continued spreading. It will need guidance. Oversight. Balance. The implication hung clearly in the air between them. Someone would need to remain as guardian of the transformed void, ensuring it maintained its new nature rather than reverting to mindless consumption. Before they could discuss this further, their protective bubble shuddered violently. The transformation had destabilized the void structure, creating dimensional ripples that threatened to strand them permanently between realities. We need to leave, Gojo warned, strain evident in his voice as he maintained the limitless barrier against increasing pressure. The tunnel back is collapsing. Amara, Naruto called. The escape path, now. The silver-skinned goddess nodded, raising her hands to manipulate space-time. A tier formed in the chaos surrounding them, a pathway leading back to the human realm. But as it opened, they could all see it was unstable, fracturing at the edges. It won't hold for all of us, Amara announced grimly. The dimensional flux is too severe. Then some stay behind, Koros concluded immediately. The humans go. Divine beings remain. No, Naruto countered firmly. I'll stay and stabilize the void transformation. The rest of you return. Absolutely not, Maki objected, stepping closer to him. We came together, we leave together. Naruto's expression softened as he looked at her. The transformation needs guidance, Maki. Someone who understands both divine purpose and human value. He turned to include Utahime in his gaze. Someone who remembers why balance matters. There must be another way, Utahime insisted, her voice cracking slightly. Another violent tremor shook their protective bubble. The escape pathway Amara had created narrowed visibly, dimensional pressures threatening to close it entirely. Go, Naruto urged. Return to the human realm. Tell them what happened here. Prepare them for what comes next. And what exactly comes next? Gojo asked, somehow maintaining his composure despite the cosmic chaos surrounding them. Evolution, Naruto answered simply. For all 6 realms. Koros made a sound like grinding boulders, his version of contemplative thought. I will remain with the sage, he declared unexpectedly. My hunger can help contain any regression. This surprising offer left everyone momentarily speechless. Naruto recovered first, nodding in appreciation of the monstrous entity's unexpected sacrifice. Thank you, old friend, he said sincerely. Your nature may be exactly what's needed here. Amara's mercury eyes narrowed with sudden decision. I too shall remain. My spatial manipulation will help stabilize the transformation boundaries. Her gaze met Naruto's steadily. 3 anchors are stronger than 1. The triumvirate, reunited in purpose if not in full membership with Vashti's absence, had made their choice. A final act of guardianship to balance millennia of attempted dominion. The path won't hold much longer, Gojo warned, already edging toward the escape route with Utahime. Maki remained rooted in place, her expression a complex mixture of understanding and refusal. You said we'd have unfinished conversations, she reminded Naruto quietly. He stepped closer, golden eyes meeting hers. We will. This isn't an ending, Maki. Divine beings exist across dimensions. Once the transformation stabilizes, I'll find a way back. Promise me, she demanded, intensity radiating from every fiber of her being. Instead of answering with words, Naruto closed the distance between them. His hand gently cupped her face as he kissed her, a connection transcending the boundaries between human and divine. In that contact flowed not just emotion but promise, certainty, inevitability. When they separated, golden energy lingered between them, a tangible connection that wouldn't break easily, even across dimensional barriers. I promise, he said simply. Another violent tremor shook the void, the escape path narrowing to critical dimensions. Go. Koros bellowed. Now or never. With a final lingering look at Naruto, Maki turned and joined Gojo and Utahime at the dimensional tear. As they stepped through, returning to the human realm, Naruto raised the Shikujo in farewell, a golden beacon in the transforming void. Then they were gone, the pathway sealing behind them, leaving the three primordial beings alone in the cradle of new realities. Well then, Amara commented dryly. Shall we get to work? Maki, Gojo, and Utahime emerged from the dimensional tear to find the Jujutsu High Courtyard in chaos. The anchor circle had nearly collapsed, sorcerers straining to maintain the connection against increasing pressure. As they stumbled through, the gateway slammed shut behind them with concussive force, sending everyone sprawling. They're back. Tadu shouted, rushing forward to help Gojo to his feet. Where's Uzumaki? Staying behind, Gojo answered grimly, adjusting his blindfold. With Amara and Koros. Principal Yaga approached, his expression grave. To what end? To complete the transformation, Utahime explained, her voice hoarse from the dimensional harmonics she'd maintained. The hunger isn't destroyed, it's being repurposed. They're ensuring it doesn't revert. Around them, reality stabilized visibly, the dimensional distortions that had plagued Tokyo receding like an outgoing tide. The sky, which had torn open to reveal the void, healed gradually, returning to normal blue with scattered clouds. It's working, Maki observed, watching the changes spread across the city. Whatever they're doing in there, it's affecting our reality already. Tadu looked around at the assembled sorcerers, many of whom appeared confused or uncertain. So, we won. It's over. Not over, Maki corrected, her hand unconsciously touching her lips where Naruto had kissed her. Evolving. In the days that followed, reports confirmed what they'd witnessed locally, dimensional stability returning worldwide, curse manifestations settling back into predictable patterns, reality itself seeming to strengthen rather than continue deteriorating. The Jujutsu Society scrambled to understand what had happened, higher-ups demanding explanations that the incursion team provided with varying degrees of detail. Gojo, predictably, treated the entire affair with his usual casual confidence, as if diving into the void to confront an entity that consumed existence itself was just another Tuesday. He returned to teaching, though students noticed his lessons now included previously unknown concepts about dimensional theory and the nature of reality. Utahime withdrew to Kyoto, spending long hours in meditation and vocal practice. Those who heard her sing commented that her voice had changed, not in quality but in impact, her techniques now carrying resonant power that affected reality in subtle but unmistakable ways. The ancient bloodline of song priests had awakened fully within her. Maki, however, threw herself into training with singular focus. The Tatsuka blade remained in her possession, having returned to her hand during their escape from the void, and she dedicated herself to mastering its capabilities. Each day, she would practice at the edge of the forest behind Jujutsu High, the divine weapon flashing with golden light as she cut through concepts as easily as physical objects. 1 month after the incursion, Gojo found her there during a particularly intense session. The trees around her clearing had been precisely cut, not damaged or destroyed, but separated into component concepts, then reassembled in more harmonious formations. Impressive redecorating, he commented, hands in his pockets as he surveyed her work. Though the forest maintenance staff might have questions. Maki paused, breathing heavily from exertion. "What do you want, Gojo?" "Just checking in," he replied lightly. "You've been rather focused lately." "He's coming back," she stated flatly, resuming her practice stance. "I need to be ready." Gojo didn't pretend to misunderstand. "You believe he'll find a way to return from the void?" "I know he will," Maki corrected, the Totsuka blade flashing as she executed a perfect cut through what appeared to be empty air. Where the blade passed, reality briefly separated into visible layers before resealing. "Because he promised?" Gojo asked, his tone neutral rather than skeptical. Maki paused again, turning to face him fully. "Because I felt it." "When he..." She hesitated, then continued more firmly. "When we connected, something passed between us. Something permanent. He created a link that transcends dimensional boundaries." Gojo nodded thoughtfully. "Divine blessing, perhaps. Or something more personal." "Does it matter what it's called?" she challenged. "I suppose not," he conceded. After a moment's silence, he added, "You might be interested to know that Utahime has been experiencing something similar." That caught Maki's attention. "What do you mean?" "Dreams, primarily," Gojo explained. "Visions of the void transformation. Conversations with Naruto across dimensional boundaries through song. She's been documenting everything in a journal." "She hasn't mentioned this to me," Maki noted, a slight edge in her voice. "Perhaps she thought you had your own connection," Gojo suggested. "No need to intrude." Maki considered this, her expression thoughtful. "I should talk to her." "Probably," Gojo agreed easily. He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and there's one more thing you might find interesting. The higher-ups have been monitoring unusual energy signatures across Japan. Divine residue, they're calling it." "Residue from what?" "New growth," Gojo replied cryptically. "Trees with golden sap appearing overnight. Rivers that flow briefly uphill during full moons. Birds that sing in harmonic patterns that affect cursed energy. Little changes that add up to something evolutionary." He left her with that thought, strolling back toward the school buildings with his usual unhurried gait. That evening, Maki called Utahime for the first time since their return. The conversation was initially awkward, both women aware of their shared connection to someone who existed beyond conventional reality, but gradually warmed as they compared experiences. "He speaks to me through song," Utahime confirmed. "Not words exactly, but impressions. Images. The transformation is progressing, but it's demanding. The void constantly tries to revert to pure consumption." "Can he return?" Maki asked directly. Utahime's pause spoke volumes. "Not completely. Not yet. The anchoring requires his presence." Another hesitation. "But he's finding ways to extend his influence back into our reality. The changes Gojo mentioned, they're Naruto's work. Preparing the human realm for greater connection with the divine." "For what purpose?" Maki pressed. "Evolution," Utahime replied, echoing Naruto's final message. The barriers between realms were never meant to be permanent. Just developmental stages until each was ready for greater integration. After their conversation, Maki took the Totsuka blade to the highest point on campus, a small hill overlooking the forest and city beyond. Under the light of a full moon, she unsheathed the divine weapon and held it vertically before her, focusing her intent through the blade as Naruto had taught her. "I know you can feel this," she said to the night sky. "I know you're watching." The blade began to glow, resonating with her intent and emotion. Golden light spiraled up its length, intensifying until it projected a beam skyward, piercing dimensional boundaries, creating a momentary connection between realms. In response, the sky rippled subtly, not tearing open as during the crisis, but gently parting like curtains to reveal glimpses of something beyond. For the briefest moment, Maki saw it, the transformed void, now shimmering with potential rather than hungering for consumption. And within that infinite canvas of possibility, three figures working in perfect harmony to guide its evolution. One of them, golden-haired, blue-eyed, wearing a headband with 6 rings, paused in his labor to look directly at her across impossible distance. His smile carried across dimensions, warming her despite the night's chill. The vision lasted only seconds before the sky returned to normal, but it was enough. Confirmation. Connection. Promise. Maki sheathed the Tatsuka blade with renewed purpose. The wait might be long by human standards, but for beings that existed across dimensions, time worked differently. She would be ready when he found his way back. 3 years passed. The world continued turning, largely unaware of how close it had come to absolute annihilation. Jujitsu society adapted to the subtle changes in cursed energy patterns, developing new techniques that resonated with the strengthened dimensional boundaries. Maki rose through the ranks, her mastery of the Tatsuka blade making her one of the most formidable sorcerers alive despite her technical lack of cursed energy. The Zenin clan, initially dismissive of her continued abnormality, fell silent when she single-handedly exorcised a special-grade curse by cutting through its conceptual foundation rather than its physical manifestation. Utahime developed a new teaching methodology based on harmonic resonance, her students learning to manipulate cursed energy through vocal techniques that drew upon the ancient traditions of song priests. Her collaboration with Gojo led to breakthroughs in domain expansion theory, particularly regarding dimensional anchoring and boundary stability. Throughout Japan, the subtle changes Gojo had mentioned continued spreading, an ecosystem gradually adapting to increased divine influence. Sacred sites long dormant awakened with new energy. Children born near these locations sometimes displayed unusual abilities that defied conventional jujitsu classification. Evolution in progress, just as Naruto had predicted. On the 3rd anniversary of the Void Incursion, Maki and Utahime met at the mountain shrine where Naruto had recovered the Tatsuka blade. The structure had transformed dramatically since their last visit, no longer decayed but rejuvenated, living wood incorporating the ancient beams, flowers blooming from cracks in the stone floor, golden light perpetually filtering through the roof regardless of weather or time of day. "It's changing faster now," Utahime observed as they entered the sacred space. "The integration is accelerating." Maki nodded, feeling the resonance through the Tatsuka blade at her hip. "He's getting closer." They had developed a ritual over the years, combining Maki's divine weapon channeling with Utahime's dimensional harmonics to briefly strengthen the connection between realms. Each time, they caught glimpses of progress in the void transformation, witnessing how Naruto, Amara, and Koro's guided the ancient force toward creative purpose rather than mindless consumption. Each time, the barrier between seemed slightly thinner than before. "Shall we begin?" Utahime asked, moving to the center of the shrine where the spiral pattern glowed permanently now, no longer needing activation. Maki nodded, unsheathing the Tatsuka blade. As always, it hummed with anticipation, having developed its own awareness of their regular communion attempts. Utahime took a deep breath and began to sing, notes that transcended conventional music, resonating with the fundamental frequency of reality itself. As her voice established the harmonic foundation, Maki raised the blade, channeling her intent through the divine weapon. Golden light erupted from both woman and blade, spiraling upward to meet the harmonics generated by Utahime's voice. Where the energies converged, reality gently parted, creating a window between realms rather than a tier. Through this opening, they saw the transformed void, now a shimmering expanse of potential energy, galaxies forming and dissolving in endless cycles of creation. The hunger remained, but redirected, its consumption now part of a balanced cycle that fed new creation rather than endless destruction. At the center of this cosmic canvas stood 3 figures, still recognizable but changed by their years of guardianship. Amara's silver form now incorporated flowing patterns of stars and nebulae. Koro's had transformed from monstrous hunger to structured consumption, his form more defined, more purposeful in its appetite. And Naruto, the sage of 6 realms, glowed with power that bridged divine authority and human compassion. The 6 rings that had adorned his headband now orbited his form like miniature planets, each representing a realm under his guidance. As always, he sensed their connection immediately, turning toward the dimensional window with a smile that transcended distance. But this time, something was different. He approached the boundary between realms, studying it with newfound intensity. The transformation is stable, his voice reached them, carried through Utaheime's harmonic bridge. The new cycle is self-sustaining. You're coming back? Maki asked, hope and caution warring in her voice. Not exactly, Naruto replied, his smile turning contemplative. I can't abandon my responsibilities here. But perhaps, integration is possible. He raised his hand toward the dimensional window, golden energy gathering around his fingertips. The barriers between realms were never meant to be permanent, just protective stages until each was ready for greater connection. And now they're ready? Utahime asked, maintaining her harmonics with practiced skill. Ready for the next phase, Naruto confirmed. Not full merger, but communication. Exchange. Growth. His hand pressed against the dimensional boundary from his side. On their side, the window rippled like water disturbed by a stone. Maki, he called softly. The Tatsuka blade. Understanding intuitively, she raised the divine weapon and precisely cut along the rippling edge of the dimensional window. Where the blade passed, the boundary reorganized, not severing but redefining, establishing new parameters for interaction between realms. Yes, Naruto encouraged, his own power flowing through from the void side to meet hers. Not destruction of boundaries, but evolution of connection. The shrine around them began to transform as the redefined boundary took effect. Stone and wood shifted, incorporating elements that shouldn't exist in conventional reality, materials with properties that bridged physical and divine nature. The spiral pattern at the center expanded, becoming a pool of golden energy that rippled in perfect harmony with the transformed void visible through their window. What's happening? Maki asked, though some part of her already knew. Creation of the first true junction, Naruto explained, his voice stronger now as the connection solidified. A place where realms overlap purposefully rather than accidentally. Where barriers become bridges. Through the dimensional window, they could see Amara and Koro's positioning themselves at precise coordinates within the void, their divine powers extending outward to stabilize the growing connection. This wasn't Naruto acting alone, but the coordinated effort of all 3 primordial guardians. The triumvirate in harmony at last, Utahime observed, her song adapting to support the transformation. Guided by what we learned from humanity, Naruto confirmed. Connection over dominion. Growth over control. The golden pool at the shrine center deepened, becoming a well of pure potential energy, a direct conduit to the transformed void. As the connection strengthened, Naruto's form at the dimensional window became more defined, more present, as if gradually shifting from one reality to another. I can't leave my responsibilities entirely, he explained, one foot tentatively crossing the boundary. But I can extend my presence across the junction. Exist in both realms simultaneously, at least temporarily. Like a commuter, Maki suggested with unexpected humor. Working in one dimension, living in another. Naruto's laugh carried through the strengthening connection, warm and genuine. Trust you to make cosmic transformation sound like a daily commute. Another step, and he was partially through, existing in both realms simultaneously, golden energy flowing around him like a protective cocoon. Utaheime's harmonics intensified, stabilizing his transition between dimensional states. The junction will need maintenance, he cautioned as his form continued solidifying on their side. Regular reinforcement from both sides to prevent deterioration. We can handle that, Maki assured him, the Tatsuka blade glowing with renewed purpose in her hands. With a final surge of golden energy from both sides, Naruto stepped fully into the shrine, physically present in the human realm while maintaining his energetic connection to the void through the golden pool. The dimensional window remained open behind him, a permanent bridge between realms. For a moment, none of them spoke, the significance of what they'd accomplished settling over them like a comfortable weight. Then Maki closed the distance between them, the Totsuka blade lowered to her side. "You kept your promise," she said simply. "I always will," he replied, his golden eyes meeting hers with equal parts divine power and very human emotion. Utahime approached more cautiously, her song fading as she completed the harmonic bridge. "The junction is stable?" "For now," Naruto confirmed. "Though it will need ongoing attention from both sides. Amara and Koros will maintain the void aspect, but the human realm connection requires different expertise." His gaze moved meaningfully between Maki and Utahime, divine weapon wielder and song priest, the perfect combination to maintain the bridge between worlds. "So we're junction maintenance staff now?" Maki asked, arching an eyebrow. "Among other things," Naruto replied, his expression warming. "The junction isn't just a doorway for me, it's the first of many. The beginning of greater integration between all 6 realms." Evolution, Utahime recalled his earlier promise. "Precisely." Naruto turned to look back through the dimensional window, where Amara and Koros continued their work in the transformed void. "We've changed the fundamental relationship between realms. Not separate territories to be defended, but aspects of a greater whole that strengthen each other through connection." He faced them again, his expression both serious and hopeful. "It won't be easy. Change never is. Some will resist the integration, fear the unknown. But the potential for growth, for all beings, human and otherwise, is worth the challenge." "And your role in all this?" Maki asked directly. Naruto's smile returned, combining divine certainty with human warmth in a way only he could achieve. "Guide. Teacher. Bridge builder." His gaze lingered on her. "And whatever else seems right along the way." The implication hung in the air between them, a promise of connection that transcended dimensional boundaries and cosmic responsibilities. Outside the shrine, birds began singing in complex harmonic patterns that echoed Utahime's dimensional bridge. The forest around them shimmered with heightened vitality, trees growing slightly more luminous, flowers blooming out of season. Reality itself seemed to celebrate the new junction between realms. "So," Naruto said, looking between his 2 human anchors with genuine affection. "Shall we begin the next chapter?" Over the following years, the integration progressed carefully, deliberately. Junctions similar to the mountain shrine appeared at key locations around the world, always at ancient sites where dimensional boundaries had naturally thinned over millennia. Each became a point of controlled connection between realms, allowing limited exchange while maintaining necessary separation. The Jujutsu Society gradually adapted to this new reality, developing techniques that incorporated understanding from multiple realms. Special-grade curses became less chaotic, more purposeful, still dangerous but part of a balanced system rather than merely destructive manifestations. Naruto divided his existence between responsibilities, spending time in the transformed void with Amara and Koros, maintaining cosmic balance, then returning through the junctions to guide the human realm's adaptation to increased dimensional awareness. The triumvirate, once would-be rulers of humanity, had found a more fulfilling purpose as guardians of the greater balance. Even Vashti, thought lost during the initial confrontation with the hunger, eventually re-emerged, not as an individual entity but as truth concepts distributed throughout the transformed void, helping define the new reality. Maki continued her mastery of divine weaponry, eventually establishing a new training program that taught selected jujitsu sorcerers how to channel divine energy through specialized tools. The Zenin clan, after initial resistance, ultimately recognized her as the fulfillment of their bloodline's true purpose, not curse technique users, but bridges between human and divine. Utahime's harmonic methods revolutionized jujitsu education, her school producing graduates who could manipulate dimensional frequencies through voice and sound. Song priests returned to their original purpose, not merely exorcists, but communicators between realms, translating concepts that would otherwise remain incomprehensible. And Naruto, the sage of 6 realms, the primordial curse god who had chosen humanity, found a balance he had sought for millennia. Neither fully divine nor merely human, but something uniquely positioned to understand both perspectives. A bridge in himself, embodying the connection he had helped create. On a warm summer evening, 5 years after the creation of the first junction, Naruto stood atop Tokyo Tower, watching the city lights twinkle below. So much had changed, yet humanity continued its beautiful, chaotic dance, adapting, growing, evolving in ways that still surprised him despite his ancient perspective. "Admiring your handiwork?" Maki's voice came from behind him. She approached casually, the Tatsuka blade secured at her hip, her practical confidence unchanged despite the cosmic shifts she had helped facilitate. "Just appreciating the view," he replied, smiling as she joined him at the railing. "How was Kyoto?" "Productive," she reported. "Utahime students have stabilized the southern junction. The dimensional harmonics are holding steady. And the new divine weapons?" "In production," Maki confirmed. "Though getting the materials from the animal realm remains challenging. Kurama drives a hard bargain." Naruto laughed, the sound carrying harmonic undertones that briefly caused the air around them to shimmer with golden light. He always did have a merchant spirit beneath that dignified exterior. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city below. The integration remained largely invisible to ordinary humans, perceptible only as subtle changes in natural patterns, occasional glimpses of beings from other realms, dreams that seemed unusually vivid or prophetic. A gentle evolution rather than sudden revolution. "Any word from the void side?" Maki asked eventually. "Amara sends her regards," Naruto replied. "The transformation continues expanding beyond our original containment. New realities are forming within the structured void, embryonic dimensions with fascinating potential." "And Koro's?" "Happier than I've ever seen him," Naruto said with genuine warmth. "His hunger now serves creation, consuming only what has completed its cycle, making room for new growth." Maki nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. "So the great cosmic crisis became beneficial in the end." "Most crises contain opportunity," Naruto observed. "It's all in how you respond." He turned to face her fully. "Speaking of responses, I believe we still have unfinished conversations." "After 5 years?" Maki raised an eyebrow, though her lips curved in a half-smile. "You're not exactly rushing things. Time works differently across dimensions," he reminded her with a matching smile. "For some perspectives, we only just met. And for others, we've known each other across countless lifetimes," she countered, stepping closer. Naruto's golden eyes softened as he studied her face. "Both can be true simultaneously. That's something I've learned from existing across realms. Apparent contradictions often simply reflect different valid perspectives." "Very philosophical," Maki noted dryly. "Is that your way of avoiding direct questions?" "No," he replied, his smile widening. "It's my way of saying I love you in this life, have loved similar souls in past lives, and will continue loving throughout futures yet to unfold. Perspective matters, but the constant remains." For once, Maki had no quick retort. Instead, she closed the remaining distance between them, one hand reaching up to touch the 6 rings that still orbited his head like a cosmic crown. "Good answer," she said simply, before pulling him into a kiss that bridged human passion and divine connection, 2 realms meeting in perfect harmony. Above them, the sky briefly rippled, stars rearranging into new patterns as the other realms acknowledged the deepening bond between their guardian and his human anchor. 6 realms, once separate, now connected through bridges built of understanding, respect, and love. Evolution, indeed. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.